The boy was walking through the ruined city looking for the man who had run away from him so far. After walking a little further, he saw the man being killed by monsters, although he was only ordered to live as long as possible. Instantly, the monsters spotted the boy, and a message appeared in front of him that monster 435,221,222 had spotted him. He was not afraid. He just wanted to turn off the function so that he would not have to be called by each monster individually. In less than a second, the monsters were right in front of his nose. But the boy was not at all confused, and by turning on the addition and multiplication skills, he dealt with them in no time. The hero's name was Hen. An hour later, he came to the city, where he was met by a high-difficulty player named Geum Jun-gin. Hyun said that he didn't have enough nerves and asked to send someone else, but no one could do it better than him. He asked what happened to the guy who ran away. The hero replied that he had been eaten. The gym was surprised because he was playing on a high difficulty. Hyun said that when he arrived at the spot, he saw 3 A-ranked monsters already enjoying the guy. Players on the high difficulty level are quite strong, but even 1 A-ranked monster can handle them. Gim was worried that there were 3 such monsters in the area, and he asked where exactly Hyun had met them. The hero replied that it didn't matter, because he killed them without hesitation. Hen said that he was very hungry, so he invited his friend Jim to go to the dining room with him. However, something else was on his mind, and he asked if Hen was playing on a low difficulty level, which he was. The guy's name was actually Kang Tae-sang, and he started to make excuses, saying that he was with many other players. Jim asked how he could find out, because all the lungs except the guy were dead and the others were dying from the wounds. Jim didn't understand how a light player could survive here, because even a normal player had a hard time here. It was very suspicious. Gim asked why Hyun was so strong. Even though Gim was a hard player, he couldn't handle the hero. Hyun said without hesitation that it was because they were all lazy. Jim said that Hyun was at it again. In the dining room, there were potatoes, which the hero did not like. He thought that it was possible to grow sweet potatoes or corn. Him emphasized that potatoes are cheaper, easier to grow, and they have distribution restrictions. He also asked if Hung had learned the skill of fast growing. The boy replied that he could not do it because he was at an easy level and food was everywhere. The boys heard screams from the street. Hung emphasized that it was probably someone returning from a sweep. Hen thought that the guy would be arrested, but Jim emphasized that it was a hard and the hero had to intervene in the dispute. The hero also heard someone calling him from the street because there was a quarrel going on. One of the guys was shouting that it couldn't be like this. It was supposed to be over after the raid. Hyun asked one of the players where Lee Tae-young was and was told that he was on a reconnaissance mission. An old man tried to explain to the guy who was screaming that this was indeed the planet Earth, and that a lot had changed. However, he did not even want to listen to him. He hit him in the face with all his might and told him not to lie. He wished the boy good luck. Hyun said that he would kill him if he ate his carp before he returned. Hyun approached the boy and told him that it was all true and that humanity was in danger of dying, and the boy again told him not to lie. The guy said that it couldn't be so, because in this game there are a lot of players who can stop all the monsters. Most players who return to the ground after the maze go crazy because they can't accept reality. This happens quite often, but it's impossible to get used to it, and there's only one way out. Hen decided to challenge the boy to a duel so that he would realize that no one was joking. Hen asked the boy's name. The boy replied that his name was Lee Jang-chun and asked who he was to challenge him to a duel. When he heard that Kang Tae-sun was with him, he immediately realized that it was the same ISI who was clogging up the chat. Lee said that he was laughing at the fact that he was challenging a hardcore and asked if Hyun knew the difference between them. Hyun told him to shut up and fight, and if Lee wins, Hyun will show him the real world. Jang replied that Hung would be sorry, and if he killed him, it would not be Jang's problem. Jang, activating his zoom, concentration, and strong punch skills, rushed straight to Heng. Heng realized that the guy was quite strong because he had magnification and a strong punch. Jang rushed towards Hung. The hero activated the nullification of the first blow, so Jang did not cause him any damage. When the dust from the blow cleared, the guy saw Heng holding his sword and asking if that was it. Jang didn't understand why his strike didn't work. If it was some kind of new skill, he had never heard of it before. Heng, activating the Last Judgment skill, hit Jang in the stomach and broke through his defense with this skill. A message appeared in front of the guy saying that the damage that Jang had done was 49 points. Jang was happy that he had only been dealt 49, and he began to rejoice. because now Hen would see the difference between easy and hard. The guy, asking if Zhang had 10,000 health points, activated the increase, multiplication, and last judgment. He was ready to strike his last blow, but Zhang began to beg him not to. However, Hung didn't care. He just lightly touched the back of his head and he flew face down. A message appeared in front of Hung that he had inflicted 9,604 points of damage. Standing in front of the guy, he asked if he now realized that he was really on the ground. Zhang began to cry, saying that if he had known before that the world would become like this, he would never have gone to the maze. Once there was peace on Earth, but at one point, the heavens parted and hordes of monsters flew from them. Each person was given a choice: low, normal, high, or loner difficulty level. After choosing the difficulty level, the players were taken to the maze, and they could get back to Earth only after they had completely cleared the maze. They already found their home planet in a state of chaos, with hundreds of thousands of different monsters. Heng told Zhang that they had nothing else to do and they had to save the world together. At that moment, Heem came up to Heng and said that he had to see his friend in action. Hung said that he talked a lot. Jim said that Hen was very good because Takanovites hit players very hard, even hard. Hen said that there was nothing wrong with teaching a weakling a lesson. But Jim replied that he was just a very strong hero. Hen said that the potatoes were already cold. He shouldn't have interfered. Jim asked how the hero had the skill of multiplication. He also asked about the last court, which breaks through any defense, and about nullifying the first strike. He had only seen such skills in Hyun, so he was curious. The hero replied that he had earned them through hard work. The next moment, they heard a strange sound. He thought it was a new player, but Hyun didn't think so. In fact, it was Lee Tae-young returning from the cleanup. Humanity's going to die soon, and Lee Tae-young is so worried about his room decorations. The guy has always been annoyed by how much the girl loves her beauty, even in such difficult moments for the planet. Monsters are running around the streets, and the girl was able to deliver such a large painting without a single scratch. And most importantly, Lee Tae-young is the only player who cleared the maze so quickly. Hyun asked why the strongest player among them was a girl. Tae replied that in times like these, it's good to have something to be interested in, and asked if maybe Hyun should find a hobby as well. The boy replied that they would discuss this later and asked why he was invited here. The girl asked if it was Han who was teaching the newcomer a lesson and added that she had never seen an easy person teach a hard one. The girl also gave her characteristics in front of the hero. Hyun asked if she was just showing off. Tae replied that she was just checking. Hyun emphasized that the girl was just showing off to the other players. The guy showed her his characteristics, to which Tae replied that she knew the guy was really pathetic. However, she immediately said that this was just a test for the other players, and that his characteristics were very good. The maze is divided into 4 levels of difficulty, and when a player passes it, his or her leveling stops. It is impossible to become stronger in the future, so there is a big difference in characteristics between difficulty levels. More players had thousands of times better stats than Hen. However, none of them could have withstood his attack, because the skills that the guy has can always be obtained. Tae activated the increase, doubling, perfect accuracy, and increase in attack range and rushed at the hero. The guy activated zeroing and asked why Tae did it. The girl replied that she did it for fun. The girl started listing all the guy's strong skills and asked if he had 200. Hyun emphasized that he had 230. All of the skills he had earned were earned through hard work. Tae replied that following Hyun's example, she should have examined the maze in more detail instead of going through it quickly. She also added that if the boy had chosen to be a loner, they would have defeated all the monsters for sure. All of the guy's skills are of a high level, but because of the difficulty level, he doesn't even use half of them. Hen said he didn't want to hear this and asked if the girl had returned from her patrol. She had. Tae emphasized that there would be a new wave soon. Hyun realized that they would not live after it. By wave, players understand a massive attack of monsters. During the first wave, Seoul was lost. During the second wave, a large number of Hardys died, and during the third wave, the zone narrowed to a small town. Hyun asked how many monsters there would be. Tae said that there would be 2 S rank, dozens of A, hundreds of B, and 1 apostle. 2 S rank monsters is a problem even for Tae, and they don't have enough Hardys to handle A rank. There was no point in even talking about the apostle. Tae asked Hyun to take on 2 S rank monsters. Tae has to take care of the apostle, and Hyun is the only one who can handle S rank monsters, and he knows it. Hyun wanted to go tell everyone else about it so they could prepare for the battle properly. Tae told him that maybe it was better for them not to know anything because they would at least have time to enjoy life. However, Hyun had a completely different opinion. He did not think it was better to live in ignorance. The boy left Tae's room. The girl knew that Tae-sang was very strong. He could lead them to victory. But it was not like that. In fact, she was just a coward in her own right. All the players were crying. Even though he knew that day would come, it didn't make it any easier. Hyun asked how Gim was feeling. He replied that he had already accepted it. They had been holding on for a long time. He added that they had already lived much longer than others. In other words, he would call it a blessing. Gim looked at the man who had rebelled in the morning. He felt sorry for him, because he had just returned from the maze and found out about this. Gim asked how Hen was feeling, because humanity would not have survived a day without what he had done. Hen, after a bit of silence, said that he was so angry now that he was starting to tear up inside. Watching the monsters, Gim asked whom Hyun had to defeat. The hero replied that he had to defeat 2 S ranks. Hyun stood up and started walking. Gim emphasized that they would see each other in the afterlife, because Hyun was going there first. The guy, activating the long-range jump, jumped high up and activated total surveillance. On the radar, he saw hundreds of monsters to which he flew. A message appeared in front of him that he was seeing scary monsters. The guy began to run a test. First, they checked mental stability, then the state of fear and instant death. In a second, the checks were completed and the guy received a message that his body was invulnerable. Without wasting much of his time, the guy decided that he needed to act before the monsters did it first. He activated full surveillance. He hoped that none of the monsters would be protected. Immediately after that, the 7th monster appeared in front of him, which was of the protected type. The guy activated the movement acceleration. The monster had 148 million health. He would never be able to defeat it in eternity. Next to him, he saw another monster. It was 5, had an attacking type, and had 1.2 million. It was more realistic. The only downside to this whole situation was that the guy didn't have any skill for this type of monster. Hen started attacking him in the tentacle and did little damage. He realized that the damage was reduced on them. Then, Hen immediately realized that he had to hit the creature directly in the head, so he ran towards it. The monster started to attack, but the boy managed to use the nullify skill in time, so he was not harmed. This monster attacked with its tentacles, which were so fast that it was almost impossible to dodge them. The boy had to guess the trajectory of the attack, and if he didn't, it could be a big trouble for him. After dodging a bit, he activated the acceleration skill and rushed towards the head. There was no time to waste in this situation. He dealt 48 points of damage to the head. The monster started to attack again, and Hen used the nullification of the second attack. Jumping up the mountain, Hen saw that one monster was protecting another. A monster of the protected type protects the attacker because it sees that it is in danger. They had been sent together on purpose, but the attacker forced the protected one to intervene in the fight. Heng rushed at the defender and put a protective dome around him. For 1 minute, only he can attack Hyun. If Tae had been with him, everything would have been different, because she was going through the maze on a loner and has legendary equipment. The guy started to activate doubling, multiplication, and the last judgment to attack the defender. If Tae had been there, the defender would not have harmed her because she would have dealt with the attacker first. However, it was not the case with Hyun. No matter what type of monster it was, in any case, it would kill the guy in 1 hit. 9,604 points of damage was not enough, so he used the skill overload and overloaded the multiplication. After that, the attack power increased by 4 times. The guy first decided to deal with someone with a lot of health. Skills are the only thing you can rely on. If 9,406 is multiplied by 4, it is still far from 100 million. The guy realized that he would have to reach the limit and activated the repetition skill. He attacks the monster twice. The guy made his attack, which took 92 million units off the monster, and the repeated attack killed it. A new message appeared in front of Hen that the 7th monster was defeated. But at that moment, another monster dealt 22,543 points of damage to the guy. Hen's stamina skill was activated, his lethal damage was cancelled, and all damage was 0 for 5 seconds. Hank has used all his nullifiers and has 1 stamina left. From this point on, a very boring job begins. 1 punch, then bow, and so on in turn ad infinitum. However, there was one problem. He no longer had any skills. He would have to use normal attacks. The guy's normal attack is very weak. He has to hit the monster 25,000 times. Hen realized he couldn't do it. A lot of time passed. The guy worked according to his plan, but he was already very tired. The monster had 125,000 health. A message appeared in front of Hen that his mind and body were one, and he also received the skill of high concentration. The guy was not in the maze, so he could not get the skill. But it wasn't interesting at all. Monster 5 was defeated. A new message appeared in front of Hen. The gods of all the dimensions cannot contain their delight at his feet. Hen wondered how long the battle had been going on. It felt like about a month. The wounded boy decided that he should go home. On the way, he saw hundreds of hard men. He was angry because they were saying so much that they were the last hardy on this earth. But if that was true, why was Hen, who played on the easy level, the only one left alive of them all? He didn't know why he should go back to the city if all the people he knew were already dead. After walking a bit, he saw the body of him, looking like he had also gone to the next world as he had promised Hyun. Turning his head to the right, in the distance he saw Tae, who was covered in blood. She most likely died as well. The girl was the strongest in the world, and also the only one who had completed the maze on the loner difficulty level. And it was this apostle who killed the girl, who was already looking at him. Hen received a message that his death was near. The guy fought off the intimidation effect by activating the concentration skill, and Hen rushed at the apostle, who killed the strongest player. But the apostle turned out to be much stronger, and within seconds the skill of resilience was activated, because the guy had no health. The guy could not feel his legs, probably because the monster had pierced him through, both in the heart and in the spine. He just wanted to die in peace. Resilience only postpones the moment of death. The skill does not heal at all. Hen was going to die in a few minutes, and he thought that the monster apostle also understood this very well. The hero began to think that if he hadn't chosen an easy difficulty level, at least a normal one, he would have made it. But at that moment, Hen realized that it was all the fault of the other players, because they didn't even try to level up. The hero simply didn't understand how they could all be so weak, having played through the difficult and normal levels. If they had tried at least half as hard as Hen did, they would have been able to defeat the wave together. In the moment, the guy gave up. He had already made his choice in the past. There was no point in blaming others. Just as he thought that humanity was already over, he saw a strange pebble shine in Tai's hands. Hyun immediately realized that she was saving an object on purpose. After it activated, the apostle rushed to Tai. Crawling towards the girl, the guy activated the last chance. Hen can use one skill without restrictions. He also activated the time stop. When everything stopped, he was finally able to crawl up to the strange object in her hands. A message appeared in front of him that it was a bezoar, a stone that could once bring a specific person back to the past. Hyun began to wonder why Tae hadn't used it in her lifetime. But when he saw that the skill of stopping time had dissipated and the apostle was trying to attack Hai again, the hero activated the bezoar. In an unknown space, a memory appeared in front of him when he was told at a young age that he should not have been born. When Hen was still very young, his parents only needed him to take out their anger on him. As a child, he believed in their words, no matter how horrible they were. He believed in the insignificance of his existence. That's why the hero chose the easy level, but since then he has changed. Han knows that he is not a nobody, he is very strong. The hero found himself in a room, picking up his phone. He saw 2019 on the calendar. He went back in time. It all started on January 1st, 2020, and no one could believe that the destruction of humanity would begin in the new year. The guy was enjoying pizza in his room. It tasted magical, because he hadn't tasted it for a long time. After the apocalypse began, people had nothing to eat except potatoes and monster meat. Hen did not know that Li Tae had a magic item that could turn back time. However, the hero still couldn't understand why the girl didn't use it until the end, because she could have survived. As far as Hen knew the girl, she could have used the stone to hide somewhere, but it was just a guess. It was 2358, which meant that January 1st, 2020 was coming up, and soon everything would start again. People around the world are now happily counting down to the start of a new, happy year for them. They all expect that everything will be much better in the new year, but unfortunately, at 12 o'clock, the world will turn into chaos. The clock struck 12 o'clock, and immediately a terrible roar was heard. People did not understand what was happening. Previously, Hen was scared like everyone else, but now he knows that this is a B-rank monster, which is not scary for a hardcore player. Just when he thought it was time to receive a message from the system, it happened. The message said that the whole world is threatened with destruction, and any human weapon is useless against them. But people should not be afraid, because a merciful deity took pity on them and decided to give them a chance. Everyone will be given a choice, and after making it, everyone will go to the maze. Players have to clear the maze to gain power. Hen, who was faced with a choice of difficulty, believed that the deity just wanted to enjoy the spectacle. Easy difficulty level. At each level, players will have a large amount of food. Even weak players can easily cope with it. Normal. At this level, there is much less food. It is more difficult to survive, but if you keep at it, you will succeed. High. Food is critically scarce. Monsters will fight with all their might, and if you do not find a safe place, you will not survive. Loners line at this level, players will go through the maze in complete solitude. The player will not meet anyone from their world. The player will see only enemy monsters around them. All human characteristics will be subjected to impossible tests. At this level, the probability of survival equals 0.0. If the player valued his life, he should never choose this difficulty level. Without hesitation, Hen chose the loner difficulty mode. The system wished him good luck and sent him into the maze. It was a nostalgic experience for Hen because so many years had passed and he was back here again. Hen opened a general chat room with a message in it, and he didn't know the person, but he thought they were smart. Chat is the only way to communicate with people, and players can share their experiences through it. Hen closed the chat because he would need it later. Now there is no point in communicating there. Now Hen wanted to check which NPCs were on the difficult level. In the past, Hyun had been chatting with Tai, who said that she had completely different NPCs on different levels. Tae didn't know how to properly explain what they were like, so she just said that they had minds and moved freely. Hyun approached the gatekeeper of the maze, an ordinary white-haired old man on the easy level. The gatekeeper stood up and said that he thought it would take about 30 more days for Hen to get there. This NPC was stronger than Lee Tai, and he was just some gatekeeper. First, the NPC greeted Hen and said that he was Broken Man. His task is to provide the player with all the information about the maze. He also emphasized that those who died at this difficulty level become gatekeepers at the entrance to the mazes. He also added that completing the maze was an opportunity that Hen received from an omnipotent being, and he had to use it. Brockaman did not understand why they would be so gracious. If humanity was destroyed, it would at least be painless. Hyun realized that the gatekeeper was speaking as if he had been through it all before, and Lee Tae-young was right about that. The NPCs on the loner difficulty are real people. They are all past inhabitants of worlds destroyed by monsters. Brockaman looked at Hyun and didn't understand what was happening to him, because his world was just being destroyed, and he was calm. Brockaman wanted to beat Heng up first, and only then explain everything, but it was unlikely that he would react to that either. Pointing to the building, the gatekeeper said that it was a labyrinth. Some people call it a tower. Hen can call it whatever he wants. There are only 100 floors in the labyrinth, and every 10 floors are different from the others in their atmosphere. Hen will have to find food and water on his own, and any information he needs too. Hen asked if that was all, and the gatekeeper replied that in the maze, the hero would find a merchant who would tell him a little more. Hyun remembered how Tai said that her gatekeeper was very rude and could beat her up, and she almost died before she got inside. Brockaman ran his finger through the wind and pulled out a dagger, saying that he would give Hai something else to pass. A message appeared in front of Hen's eyes that he had received leather armor and a rusty sword. Brockaman thought about it for a while and threw the guy a leather handcuff as well. Hen didn't remember Tae mentioning it in the conversation. He also received some skills and something else, all of which he could check out when he entered the maze itself. Brockaman did not understand why Hyun was so happy. Did he really want to get to the walls of the labyrinth as soon as possible? Brockaman, in his work as a goalkeeper, had met many players who started on the difficulty of a single player, none of whom could survive. However, looking at Hen, the goalkeeper realized that this guy was completely different. He was not like any of those others. And it was not just talent or experience, there was something more important. His thirst and desire for life and strength. Sitting down again on the ground, the master said to himself that it would be very good if this boy could survive. In ancient times, the labyrinth was created by a magician, and it is said that whoever passes through it can make any wish. This world was isolated. Terrible creatures move quietly and kill all living things. Everything in this world is against the players. But if the players can pass through this deep and dark hell, then they will have eternal glory. Hen was already on the first floor. The monsters here were dying from stabbing blows and were not as strong as they seemed. The guy waited a bit and decided that it was time to start the main quest. There were many hidden places in the labyrinth, and when clearing the floor, the reward would depend on the number of such places explored. Earlier, Tae asked if Hyun had a merchant on easy difficulty, and the hero replied that they are available on all difficulty levels. Tae asked what he was like. The hero replied that he was a regular NPC from whom the guy bought various potions. Tae emphasized that this was not the case in single-player mode, as her merchant had a large, diverse range of goods. Tae showed a black bracelet that reduces damage by 50%, and Hyun asked if she bought it from that merchant in the maze. The girl emphasized that there were many more interesting things there, but she couldn't afford it. She didn't earn that much gold. At the end of the conversation, Tae emphasized that if Hyun had bought all the best things from the merchant, he would have been stronger than her. At that moment, the hero didn't pay much attention to these words, but the same cannot be said now that it directly affects him. Hen opened the door and entered the room where the old man was sitting. A message appeared in front of him that he was the lost king. Hen greeted the man. This surprised the king, who said that the hero was a very polite young man. After that, Hen asked if the man was a merchant, and he said yes. There was nothing at all on the shelves, not even potions. The king smiled and replied that if he started to display all his goods, an entire floor would not be enough. He also added that he was not going to show his valuables to Hen. The guy didn't understand what kind of a merchant he was, who didn't sell anything. He asked why the man was here. The man was angry and said that he was here because of the chaos that had taken place in his world. He was not here by choice. And he added again that he was not going to show all his treasures to a guy like Hen. However, he emphasized that if the boys showed him what he was made of, everything could change dramatically. Pointing to the staircase, he added that if Hen returned from there alive, he would be able to see all the things the king had earned. Hen realized that in order to buy things from the old man, he just needed to survive. But he asked if that was all he needed. Hen asked if he had to clear the entire maze to buy anything. The old man said no. He started to walk away. The king didn't understand what was happening, and the others, seeing the descent into the dungeon, began to tremble. But Hen, on the contrary, was too confident, as if he had no sense of fear, an amazing person. But the king was not interested in all this at all. He did not believe that the boy would be able to return from there alive. The boy walked along the corridor, at the end of which there was a room. The first floor was the same as on the picture. So far, there was no danger. However, right after these thoughts, he heard strange sounds and realized that he was wrong. It was a big rat. On the low difficulty level, the big rat is the boss of the 5th floor, but here it's just a regular monster. The rat rushed to the boy with incredible speed and launched its attack, causing 10 points of damage. Such a monster has very weak defense, but because of its speed, it is always lost from sight. Even in a crowd, it took them a long time to kill it. But here it's just a regular monster, and now the guy understands the difference in difficulty. The mouse is just as fast as Hen remembered it. On an easy level, they were chasing it so that it just lost all its strength. But now Hen is alone, and his characteristics are lower than they were then. So logically, he can't beat it. Hyun also recalled how Lee Tae said that everything was so bad that the girl was just trying to run away from the enemies. None of the single-player players fought the big mouse on the 1st floor. From then on, Hen understood how everything worked. The principle of rewards is very simple. If a player achieves something that others have not, then the reward will be appropriate. And Hen's goal was to become the strongest. He couldn't keep up with the mouse, so he had to predict where it would run. A mouse is an ordinary living creature, and every living creature can be studied and understood quite easily. It was reported that the big mouse was very frightened, and that made its thought processes slower. Now it will be harder for it to react. The guy is protecting his bones, so it will look for an easy target to attack. Since the mouse doesn't jump high, it will target his hand. The boy stuck out his hand, and the rat jumped right there. That's how the boy was able to catch it, and Hen started to attack and saw a message that he was harming it. A few minutes later, he returned to the king holding the meat of a large rat. The king was stunned. He asked in surprise if the boy was alive, to which Hen asked if he didn't want him to come back alive. The hero laid out on the table in front of the king meat with 96% quality and leather with 95% quality. The king was surprised that Hen killed the rat instead of running away from it. And the hero asked if the man buys such things from players. Looking at the items, the king realized that the guy did not hit randomly because they were of the highest quality. The king said that he would now show his goods. Hen asked what he had, and the man replied that he had everything he asked for. Hen emphasized that he needed a siege shield, the biggest one the merchant had. The king asked why Hen was asking for a shield, and the man replied that he wanted to use it to crush his enemies. The king replied that this was the right choice. Opening the golden door, he took out a red siege shield. For the guy, it was better than all expectations. At a low difficulty level, such equipment can be obtained on the 7th floor. The king said it was worth 500 gold. The guy had only 234. He had to kill 7 more big rats for it. The boy emphasized that he did not have enough, and the king replied that he was giving him the shield for free. The king also said that the boy had about 250 gold pieces, and with this money he had something else for Hen. The king began to put different things on the counter. Hyun didn't understand what was happening because it was not what Tai had told him. He asked why he was getting these gifts. The king asked if he couldn't just give a gift to the player. Pointing his finger at the guy, the merchant said that the hero should think of it as a good investment. The king laid out dozens of vials of potions and told Hen to choose any of them, as he had enough money for all of them. Most of the goods that the king gave were potions, all of which help in passing the maze. But at the moment, he needed something else, because everyone saves their potions for the next floors. Now he didn't see the need for them, especially since buying them could backfire on him. He had a slightly different priority. He saw an ordinary bow that cost 200 gold pieces. The arrows cost $10. Hen needed a long-range weapon, and if he had a bow, he could avoid many unpleasant situations. The rat skin was worth 70 gold pieces. He said he was selling it and wanted to buy a bow and arrows from the king. The man gave Hen a bow and arrows and asked if Hen knew that health in the maze does not recover by itself. There is a place on the ground floor where you can do it. It's called a living spring. You can heal yourself endlessly. The man marked it on Hen's map, and the guardian of the spring is an old man named Samadur, and Hen has to talk to him. The man also provided the location of the spring for Tai, but he said that he hoped the girl would die of hunger there. Hyun did not understand why the king was so kind to him. Perhaps he judges people by their actions. Tae couldn't kill the rat and just ran away, but he could, and he also returned to the merchant unharmed. Hyun began to think that this is why he treats the players so differently. Meanwhile, on the way, he met another rat, which he killed with ease, and also gained the skill of otherworldly intervention. For killing a rat, he gained skills other than the basic ones, and he also gained those that he could have gotten on the 20th and 40th floor. The hero could not believe that he could get such skills on the 1st floor. The difference was huge. But in the moment, Hen realized that he had gained the skill of otherworldly intervention because he was back in the maze. Even though he went back in time, it turns out that he was able to retain all of his skills from before. He didn't know the exact answer to this question, but he realized that he just had to go confidently towards his goal. After some time, he finally approached the spring, which was supposed to be at the end of this corridor. The boy again saw a large rat, and it was impossible to walk in the long corridor without incident. However, at that moment, he realized that the rat was not alone. The message said that he was in a difficult situation. The monsters surrounded Heng on all sides. Even though the hero was bigger than them, there were 3 rats, and even with their small brains, they realized that they were stronger. After a concentration test and a test for fear, Hen wasted no time in attacking them. He had no room for error, because he had seen too many moments when strong players were ruined by their lack of confidence. A message appeared in front of Heng that he had gained the skill Unwavering Consciousness, and all characteristics were increased. After successful checks and increased characteristics, Hen can easily match the rats in speed and catch them. Hen defeated 2 big rats and raised his level. A message appeared that one rat was scared. Because it was scared, its thinking speed was reduced. The rat rushed at Hen, who was already waiting for him with his shield raised. Finally, Hen came to a living spring. Monsters could not come here, so it was very safe. He also received a bonus for discovering a new place. His intelligence increased by 1 level and his mana by 2. The labyrinth is full of various monsters, and the only safe places in it are the merchant's benches and the following springs. After drinking some water, a message appeared saying that the hero had fully restored all his indicators. The water was very refreshing, and his fatigue melted away, as if he had slept for a very long time. But he really needed to sleep. because his mental fatigue was only increasing with each passing minute. The next day, when Hen woke up, he decided to check the general chat room to see if anyone had posted anything interesting. One of the players, Kang Jung-hyuk, who was a loner, asked if he should enter the maze at all. A girl named Na Jae-young, who was also a loner, emphasized that it was better not to, because those who had entered still didn't answer anything. A player at a normal level was looking for an ally to go through the first floor and asked what kind of monsters would be there. Han was not surprised to find that the chat mostly only received messages from loners, while on other levels, people can communicate in real life. The hero noticed Tae in the chat, who was very confused. It was strange for Hyun to see her like that, but he didn't know if she had ever been like that before. Reflecting, the hero thought that the girl was a coward who skillfully hid under a mask of confidence until the end. Only a day has passed. Loners will start appearing more en masse in a month, because most of humanity is still alive. Rewards for loners correspond to the level of difficulty, though Tai missed a lot of awards. However, she was the fastest to defeat the last boss and thus became the strongest among the other players. Hyun wrote in the general chat that the first floor is being cleared in the usual way. Even if they believed him, the hero did not know how to act, because only Tae would be able to survive among 10,000 players. Before going any further, he got some mouse meat. The description said that it was okay to eat if there was nothing else. Hyun didn't know if he could actually eat it, but he decided that if he thought about his goal, it would be more delicious. He put the meat in his mouth. A few minutes later, he received a message that he had been poisoned by raw meat. Poisoning for 2 days constantly takes away health. If you do not drink an antidote or a potion, you will die. For a beginner who does not understand anything about the labyrinth, poisoning is a terrible nightmare. That's why people who have experienced it will write in the chat that food should not be eaten raw. The guy was cured with water. But in the maze, food is very rare, and a travel kit from a vendor costs a lot of money. Therefore, the monsters of the maze become the only affordable option for players to avoid dying. Sometimes a player has to eat raw meat in situations where he is in danger. This is when it is the worst situation for them. The guy gained immunity from the poisonings he experienced, and he also gained the skill immunity from diseases. As the skill increases in mastery, it will protect him more and more from poisoning. But it's a bit of a treat. After going to the spring, Hen decided that he had to get another skill, but he really didn't want to do it. He dived in and started choking. It was very painful, and he heard from someone that drowning is the worst death. When he came up, he received a message that he had almost died, and also learned the skill of holding his breath. In addition to this, he also received the Deathline skill, which is activated under certain circumstances. With the help of these skills, you can pump breath holding. He will need it where the air is poisoned. Not many players will realize that you need to almost choke to get the skill. Hen decided to check his skill and saw 54%, which meant that this was his performance from the future. Hen didn't understand how this could be, because some skills such as Calm Mind and Insight had 1%. There were many things in the labyrinth that were unclear, but he couldn't sit there and just think about it all. After getting his sword, the guy moved on because there were still many skills he hadn't discovered, and he shouldn't stop at what he had. A combination of conditions plays a big role in acquiring skills. If you use a skill in a certain situation, you can discover a completely different skill. Using a breath hold in a stationary state and in combat are two completely different things. The system displayed a message that Hen, for his actions, had gained the skill Attack with Held Breath. In addition to this, the hero was given the title of Skill Player for having acquired more than 10 skills. Just as Hen predicted the actions of rats, now he can do the same for people. With the help of a breath-holding attack, the hero will be able to be unpredictable for his opponents for a long time. This skill will help in passing the maze. After finishing the first floor, Tae had 13 points, while Hyun already had 21. From now on, the hero can finally start building his basic skills for the battle. Basic skills usually cost 10 basic skills and allowed the player to make a big difference in performance. Hen's basic skills are Augmentation, Multiplication, Last Judgment, Zeroing the First Strike, Stopping Time. These are all basic skills that give a very big advantage over other players and opponents. Hen began to think that this was why the methods for unlocking these skills were quite specific. For example, to unlock full surveillance, you need to level up the Insight skill 2 to 3 times. If there is an opportunity to get the basic skill on the first floor, it will be harder to get it on the next. The hero will definitely take advantage of this opportunity and get it. A mouse rushed at Hen and started biting his leg. attacking him as if it thought that Hen could not respond in any way. When the guy got the message that his life was in danger, he sharply made his attack with his shield. The skill mastery of the Deathline skill increased to 3%, and the skill mastery of the Calm Mind skill increased to 2%. The rat rushed to attack again. The guy skillfully deflected it, and after that he received the special skill Blocking. Hen thought it was a very good skill that nullified damage up to a certain threshold, but he didn't need it. Hen wanted to get the Endurance skill, which nullified the hit that was supposed to kill the player and subsequent hits for a certain time. At the time, only Hen was able to get it. During the battle with the monsters, Guillaume and Tai wondered where the boy got it from. In the maze, there were several ways to get this skill. To learn from someone else, to do something that others could not. And finally, you could try to reproduce an effect close to the skill. The guy, through the practice of delayed strikes, was already able to get attacks with his breath held. Analyzing this, what should the guy have done to get the stamina that nullifies the fatal blow? That's right. Hen will simply block all attacks that could be the last and fatal for him. After blocking a few deadly attacks, Hen is notified that he now has the stamina skill. This skill saves Hen's life, so he had no right to give it up for fear of death. Usually, when Hen told his friends about this, they thought he was crazy because you can't help but be afraid of death. But in the maze, you couldn't get anything without risking your life. After gaining the skill, Hen returned to the spring, and after drinking the water, he healed all his indicators again. During the battle, he again raised the skill mastery of the Deathline and Calm Mind skills and wondered what else he could learn. He had a few skills in mind, but in his past life, he had as many as 200. A strange sound disturbed him from his thoughts. Turning his head, he saw a man who was known as the Man Who Seeks God. Even though he knew it was just an ordinary NPC because monsters can't come in here, he took out his shield. Hen knew that most NPCs on the loner were psychos. The man came a little closer and asked if Hen was a traveler. He added that they called travelers those who pass the tests to get out of the maze walls. Hyun recalled how Tae had told him that when she was resting by a spring, a knight, a servant of the god, appeared. Just as the hero began to try to remember more, the man rushed at him, telling him to repel the attack. Immediately, reports began to appear that Ainsal had used a non-lethal blow. The guy activated the Deathline skill and tried to block the attack. It was very strong. After deflecting it, the guy's strength increased by 1, and he also gained the skill of deflection, which was activated in certain circumstances. However, immediately after the first attack, another attack followed. The guy would not have time to bow. No technique would help against such a force. After the blow, the guy flew far away and received 35,000 points of damage. The man was very surprised, because he thought it would be 100,000. However, even after this, the guy survived, and it happened because the effect of a non-lethal attack was activated, the damage was cancelled. The man broke one wall of the maze with Hen. The gatekeeper was also quite strong. In loners, NPCs are real monsters. The man said that Hen surprised him because the guy put up his shield at the last moment and then lowered it to reduce the collision. Hen told him that he had to do something, not just stand there. Ainsal replied that this was the right answer. The man had no intention of killing Hen, so he did not use his fatal blow on him. But even if he had used it, Hen would have stood up. Ainsal didn't think it would have been any big deal for the hero. Hen fought for his life like a madman, and his skills were good, because with such characteristics, he could withstand the blow. Hyun knew that there were real people on loners, not just NPCs, but Tae hadn't told him that he knew the skills existed. To tell you the truth, Ainsal thought the guy was a slob at first, but he's glad he was wrong. The two men met, and the man said that it was a real miracle, adding that he was a seeker of God. When Tai was walking through the labyrinth, she also met him, and the man wanted to hit her, but stopped at the last moment. Pointing his finger at her, Ainsal called her a common coward. Hyun Tae said that the knight just stood there looking at her disdainfully and walked away, and she never saw him again. However, Ainsal was a very friendly man to Hen, and the hero had no idea how to understand all this. Hen asked the man why he liked attacking people so much if he just liked to hurt the weak. Ainsal replied that this was not the case at all. The man was a paladin, and he asked Hen why he would do this. In fact, all these attacks were just a normal test for those players who decided to visit the source. Ainsal checks whether they have the will to fight for their lives and whether they are worthy of the paladin's attention. He is annoyed by people who know nothing about themselves, but Hen received Ainsal's approval. He is good. This explained a lot to Hen. The man judges people by their confidence. Einzal will not be Hen's enemy. After that, the hero told the paladin that he was looking for a god and asked what kind of god he was looking for. There were many gods in the labyrinth, and they test and give different rewards to all players. But most of the players didn't care about the gods because they could only be found in the single-player mode. Lee Tae-young had told Hyun a lot about how evil and disgusting the gods were. So he knew a lot about them without ever meeting them. The paladin laughed and said that the more players know about the goddess, the better it is for all of them. The man also added that he served the goddess of love. Her name was Levinoth. They worshipped her and praised her name from dawn to dusk. She was a wonderful goddess who connected two people. In Einzal's world, there was no deity they loved much more than the goddess of love Levinoth. But unfortunately, the paladin's world was destroyed, and he was the only person who was able to preserve the memory of this beautiful deity. Hen asked if the man had come to the maze to find her. It was true, but the paladin could not even find a trace of her. After thinking about it for a while, Hyun remembered that he knew such a goddess. Tae had told him about her, and most importantly, he knew her from above. There was only one thing. Tae said that she had found the goddess of love Levinov already brutally murdered. Hyun remembered the first time he saw a message in the general chat about this. The girl almost vomited from what she saw. It was so disgusting that even Lee Tae-young was stunned. Hyun didn't know if he should tell the paladin about it. Einzal asked if Hyun was in a big hurry to get out of the maze. The boy replied that he was not. Hen's goal was not to get out as soon as possible. He wanted to become the strongest player and collect all the rewards. This made the man happy, and he offered to teach him the skills from the goddess of love, Levinoth. The paladin replied that the guy had no doubts at all. He thought that Hen would at least think about it. However, there was no reason to refuse. Hen had met an NPC of such power that it was almost unimaginable. Of course he wanted to learn his skills. However, Hen asked what the man wanted in return, to which he replied that it was all as his apology for the attack. Even though it was a test, he had used force against the hero, so as a paladin, he should apologize for such actions. Hen asked if it was possible to just not attack people, and the paladin said that it doesn't work that way. Einzal apologizes to Hen only because he considers him worthy, otherwise he would have just left. And apologizing in words is worthless. Because Hen is a traveler, he will definitely want to learn new, useful skills. For the boy, it was better to learn the skills with non-lethal attacks than to risk his life. The paladin was glad that the boy agreed, because he had almost disgraced the gods with his actions. A few minutes later, the guy started training, and the man insisted that Hen try to hit him with his shield. There are a lot of skills in the labyrinth. Those that are very easy to learn are called basic. If you have a sword, you learn the skill of swordplay. If you have a shield, you learn the shield skill. If you have a spear, you learn the spear skill. Similar skills can be acquired by purchasing a specific weapon. As the skill level increases, the knowledge of how to use a particular weapon also improves. Based on this, in fact, it could be said that absolutely every player has such a skill. And the skill that combines all the basic ones, although not the best, can claim to be the most useful. This skill was called Mastery of Air Weapons, and even the goddess personally praised this skill. The paladin wanted to teach Han exactly how to use air weapons. The man asked if the boy thought the skill was useless. Hen replied that the fact that it combines all the basic ones doesn't change anything. Perhaps it would be useful if it included basic skills, not just weaponry. After that, the paladin asked if Hen had an extra hit. He said he had one. The damage from that should be 4. Saying that this was all good, and most likely the basic damage from a shield attack, the paladin told Hen to attack him. He also used a target grab and a fixed damage attack. Hen attacked the knight and hit him in the head with his shield. Einthal received 4 points of damage. The old man asked if it was necessary to hit him on the head with all his might. The paladin replied that he should use his fists this time. Hen thought that he would get angry if he hit him on the head. By hitting him with his fist, Hen did only 2 units of damage. The paladin asked if Hen now understood what he was telling him. The hero asked if Einzal meant to say that the damage done depends on the type of weapon. The paladin said that it does, and added that this is why adventurers use only one weapon. When attacking with a sword, the damage will be counted only from the weapon. If you hit with a glove, the damage will be equal to 50 units. Based on this, it can be understood that damage of 70 units would be impossible. Heng said that it was obvious that if the damage was stackable, players would simply hang a bunch of different weapons on themselves. And that's why all players use only one weapon and try to maximize their possession of it. Einzal said that it's all very uncomfortable, because you can only use one type of weapon during a battle. During a battle, you have to risk your life. Sometimes you have to use not only your weapon, but also your arms and even your shoulders. And the paladin's religion didn't like this, because his body is his weapon, and his weapon is a part of his body. There should be no difference in damage. After searching for a solution, Einzal invented a new skill, a maze that adds up the damage from all attacks and equipment. For example, if a guy has a sword for 20 damage and gloves for 50, it doesn't matter what he hits with, it will still be 70. There are many more attack options, because the skill affects not only weapons, but also every part of the player's body. It doesn't matter if Han strikes with his arm, shoulder, or leg, the total damage will still be 70. The body became a weapon, and thanks to this skill, you can use all the inventory that was previously useless. Now the skill is not so useful, but in the future, when good equipment is found in the maze, it will be useful. Hen said it was a wonderful skill. In his mind, he realized that the value of a skill is equal to the value of the main one. The paladin emphasized that ordinary adventurers would never get such a useful and good skill in their lives. The man asked again if Han wanted to get it, and when he agreed, the paladin came over and told Han to relax. What makes this skill different is that Einzal learned it on his own, so he can easily pass it on to the guy. In addition, the paladin has mastered it 100%, so he can pass it on painlessly. Hen started receiving messages about the new skill, and he was shocked at how quickly he mastered it. At the last moment, he received a message saying that the guy had received the skill from its creator. It was the highest-ranked skill, and so far, Hen had only 1% of it. The paladin advised him to practice every day until he mastered it 100%. The paladin also apologized and gave back the shiny ring, saying that it was bad to get drunk and forget everything. In the past, Hen would have just thrown it away, but not now, because now this ring was equated with a rusty sword. The paladin seemed to have given the boy everything he wanted. But still, Hen wouldn't be able to achieve much now. Therefore, he offered Hen to practice with him some more, as the skill should be tested for efficiency before it is used. Of course, the boy agreed, because there was no reason to refuse. He started to take out his shield. The battle began as Hen's training. In the maze, leveling up depends on any actions taken by the player. No matter how useless a location may be, if you search it well and find at least something, you can increase your detection skill even through this. But if you constantly block the enemy's attacks with a shield, you will increase your shield skill. Therefore, in the maze, any fight, and especially a fight with a very strong opponent, makes a lot of sense in training. Heng trained for 2 days, and during this time he gained the skill of stubbornness on the battlefield, which he even managed to increase to 3%. Thanks to this skill, Hen was able to fight an S-rank monster for several days. This skill can only be obtained in a fight with players. A paladin came up and said that he couldn't believe that such a young guy had such strong skills. Laughing, Einzal asked if Hen thought he had trained with him enough. Hen replied that it was enough. After that, the paladin sat down next to him and asked him to promise him something. The old man asked him to pass on the skill, but if he was a weak player, he didn't need to teach him. If Hen disobeys this request, the paladin will find him and kill him with his own hands. And secondly, if Hen receives any information about Levanov, he must tell him. Hen emphasized that the chance that they would ever meet again was incredibly small, almost impossible. With tears in his eyes, Einzal emphasized that he did not expect anything in particular, only hoped for an incredible miracle. Hen thought that if the paladin could find the goddess, either her husband would protect her or the two of them would die a terrible death. Based on this, if Einzal did not manage to find the goddess, then Levanov would obviously be killed. The boy did not know whether to tell the man. However, he asked if the paladin wanted to know where the goddess was, and of course he did. When Hen announced that he knew for sure where Levinov was, Einzal's eyes popped out of the back of his head. The paladin emphasized that this was not funny. He had walked the entire labyrinth, and the guy who had just entered the room knew the floor. Hen saw how distrustful the knight was looking at him. He understood everything, but he had arguments for Einzal. Hen emphasized that the man could trust him because the hero had a magic object that described the labyrinth. The paladin began to say that there were no maps for the labyrinth. However, Han replied that it leads to a certain creature. With a tremor in his voice, he asked if it was a challenge from God. Hen confidently replied that it was. This item could be obtained in the labyrinth. It contained information of Heng's family, and he had memorized the places of all the deities. Before returning to the past, Tay put the strange object on the table and said that she just couldn't help but share it. She had received this item on the 89th floor, but it was useless because the deities only laughed at her. Hen thought it was a trinket that would not be useful. The hero emphasized that the goddess was on the 78th floor in the 24th secret room. He also added that the girl was in the library. The paladin hadn't really checked that library. He was overjoyed to hear that. Hen replied that in his opinion he had paid enough. Einzal grabbed him joyfully and began to thank him madly. The guy was hurt in the shoulder, as he said. The paladin apologized again and added that he was indebted to him. The paladin began to think about how he was going to follow the goddess. Because the 78th floor was quite big, he had to be well prepared. The paladin thanked Hen once again, very happily, and it was hard for him to put into words how grateful he was to the guy. The man wanted to repay Hen again, so he gave him a bronze ring. It would be very useful for Hen. Hen was very stunned, because in easy mode, he would need such an item to get to the 30th floor. The paladin wouldn't give it to a player on the first floor, but he believed that Heng deserved it. The boy thanked the paladin once again and emphasized that he no longer had time to rest, so Einsal did not have to worry. Saying that he could no longer be idle because he had found what he had been looking for, the paladin began to say goodbye to Hen. Shouting that the last person who remembered the goddess would soon come to her, the paladin ran to prepare for the journey to the 78th floor. The boy didn't know if the paladin would be able to find the girl or if she was already dead, but they would not meet the man soon. After some time on this floor, the guy's agility rose to 25, so now it wouldn't be hard for him to catch the rat. However, since the difference in Heng's soul states and the goal were very different, he was unable to get resources from the rat. Heng realized that if the difference was too great, there would be no improvement. But this was to be expected. The guy realized that he had already squeezed everything out of this floor to the maximum, so he could go to 2. But he decided to go somewhere else. There are secret rooms in the labyrinth, one on each floor, and the one who can find it will be very rewarded. A magic staff, a levitation ring, potions, and much more are items that give you a serious advantage in the maze. Only one person can get into the secret room, so there is a serious competition for the room in the easy mode. It was because of the competition that the guy lost many rooms, and because of this, luck and experience play a big role. The guy was wondering if the location of the room on single player would be the same as on easy. Of course, the map of the maze changes with the difficulty, but the structure is the same. All the rooms should be similar. There is only one entrance to each room, and the room itself must be completely empty. It is because of this emptiness that this room seems completely useless, and many players simply pass by it. Such places are where the secrets are. If you knock on every brick in the room, you can find the real secret one. And there were a lot of bricks in this room. Hen immediately realized that the search would take him a long time. You can press, you can push, you can twist. Nothing happens. You have to move on to another brick. If the next one doesn't work out, you have to pick up another one. For Hen, it was fun, better than surviving in the room for a week. As he picked up a new brick, he received a notification that his detection skill had increased to 5%. Immediately after that, the room opened. Hen received the title Adventurer and also increased his intelligence by 3 units. He stood in the middle of a hole in the brick and saw a chest in the distance. This was the treasure of the secret room. The guy realized that it couldn't be that easy to just walk up and open it, so he started looking for a trick. Upon entering, he saw a rat at the entrance, which he immediately crushed while it was sleeping. He threw the rat forward and an arrow hit it. It was very expected for the first floor. The traps are not so scary. Pulling out the arrow, the guy realized that he was stronger than most players, so he should be able to handle it easily. Counting the number of arrows in his inventory, he realized that he had 7. And such a trap, a good opportunity to get a few more. Hen started running around and activating all the traps, and after a moment he realized that he didn't need to buy them. They were free. In the moment, he caught 2 strange arrows. One was paralyzing and the other was poisonous, with different effects in addition to the damage. Even though Hen had never seen anything like them before, he was glad he had them. He decided to return to the first trap. After running around the traps a bit more, the hero managed to collect 100 arrows, which he thought would be enough for now. Having put all the arrows in his inventory, he decided to move on to the main course, the treasure chest of the secret room. To begin with, he decided to try to just break through to the chest, deflecting all the arrows with his shield. Hen should be able to make it in time. However, it was a maze, so he had to prove himself. The boy began to repel the arrows with his hands and feet, catching some of them. After dealing with 5 arrows, he went to the 9th tile, activating it, and 9 arrows flew at Heng. To get through this, he used a one-breath attack and insight. He found that he had 3 arrows from the front, 2 from the left, 3 from the right, and 1 from the bottom. It would not be easy to dodge that. However, there was no turning back. At that moment, Hen increased his perception to the limit, thus unlocking the skill of sensation enhancement. He had deflected 4 arrows. There were 5 more to go. He could not avoid one of them, so he had to use deflection. Even though the arrow missed Heng, it still dealt 4 points of damage. There were still 4 arrows in the air. Hen could withstand this damage, and thanks to the deflection, he created even more space for himself to move safely. All the remaining arrows flew in the same direction. On the way to the chest, the guy had 1 last trap left. According to the rules, it should release 10 arrows. However, when Hen pressed the button, he saw 15 arrows flying at him. There were much more arrows than the hero expected and could have imagined, so he was not at all sure that he could handle them. The more arrows there are, the more confusing the trajectories will be. He decided to take all the arrows with his body. He received a large number of damage points for this attack. He was in a critical condition and also had bleeding. When taking the arrows out of his arm, Hen felt a stabbing pain, but it was for this that he received the special skill, Pain Relief. Thanks to the skill, Hen feels less pain, but he doesn't get rid of it completely. If he hadn't felt it before, he would have passed out. Even though he was crippled, he still learned the skill and didn't want to get into any trouble on the way back. He went to the switch and pulled it down. This should turn off all the traps in the room. Hen hoped that he had disarmed all the traps. Finally, he came to the chest. It was time to see what he had risked. When he opened the chest, there was a staff inside. He was surprised that objects had already begun to appear. It was a staff of flame. It is used by novice magicians and can generate basic and primitive magic. The staff of flame was much better than other magic items. Was it because of the difficulty level of loner? Tay hasn't really hunted secret rooms, so there's no point in comparing, but things should be much better than they were. The guy can now use only 1 arm, but this does not prevent him from easily dealing with rats. Due to the fact that the guy had been in a crippled state for a long time, he had no problems fighting, so he gained the skill of unwavering will. A few minutes later, Hen returned to the spring, drank some water, and immediately recovered all his vitals. During his research, he gained pain relief, which was 1%, and sensation enhancement, which was also 1%. These skills were good enough. They are useless now, but the higher the skill, the better they will be. Unyielding Will uses 1 mana, but it was a great skill for reducing the pain of enemy attacks. The staff, using 3 mana, created a fireball that dealt damage to the enemy without resistance and set them on fire. When he got to his feet, the boy decided that there was nothing to find on the 1st floor, so he had to go to the 2nd. The layout of the maze is very simple. There is a boss on each floor that needs to be killed to move on. It would be nice if the battle with the boss ended very quickly, but then the difficulty of single player would not be justified. When Hen opened the door, he saw a huge rat in front of him, which immediately began to rush at him. On the easy difficulty level, this rat was the boss of the 10th floor, and Hen wondered how many souls had suffered because of its ugly paws. Asking if it wasn't amazing for the rat that after what he had experienced, he came back and ordered the monster to attack him. The giant rat would not be defeated by a player on the ground floor, so Li Tai had to cheat when meeting it. She used the information that the boss of the 1st floor maze was in a restricted area. She had to fill the entire room with oil and then set it on fire. If you think about it, this is a pretty logical solution in this situation. And besides, if we take into account the fact that she was the last player left, the strategy was close to perfect. But the labyrinth hadn't counted on such an easy fight. The boy activated his staff. To become even stronger, he had to demonstrate impressive abilities. With this attack, Hen dealt 14 points of damage to the rat and set the monster on fire. The boy was happy with these actions, because every 10 seconds 1 point of health was deducted, but it was not enough. Hen decided to use poison arrows. He shot and inflicted 7 points of damage, but unfortunately, he failed to poison the boss. The hero decided not to stop there and used a paralyzing arrow. The rat could not attack for 10 seconds. Analyzing his achievements, the guy realized that such arrows are a game changer in the maze. He wanted to find more of them. Hen decided to move on to the real game and use the poison arrow again, and this time he was lucky. The rat was poisoned. Even though Hen had already poisoned it, the boy did not stop using poison arrows because he did more damage with them. For the hero, this battle was more boring than difficult. The rat was very tired, so it took more damage. Hen began to hit it with his shield. The first attack brought good results, and the hero dealt 13 points of damage. However, all good things have their limits, and very soon, when the rat's health drops below 20%, the Berserker mode is activated. Even when Hen and his team tried to kill it the first time, it was almost impossible in Berserk mode. A message appeared saying that the rat was furious. This meant that the second phase had begun. The battle began to become much more difficult. The rat began to actively attack, even blocking attacks. The guy received several points of damage. It was too much for him. His strength barely reaches 11, so to inflict serious damage on the rat, you need to rely only on agility. Trying to be as fast as possible, the guy made one attack with his shield, which did 7 points of damage. The rat also made an attack, which Hen also responded to, dealing 7 points of damage and increasing his stamina by 1%. Hen had trouble breathing. His body couldn't take it anymore, so he activated his breathlessness and dealt 15 points of damage in 2 attacks. For such impudence on the part of the player, the boss made his attack, hitting Hen. The rat inflicted 24 points of damage. The hero began to realize that if this continues, he will not be able to survive even a few hits from the rat. With the help of repulsion, Hen can survive about 8 attacks, so he activated this skill. The hero, thinking that he had to end the battle while his skill lasted, rushed straight for the rat's face. After making a counterattack, Hen received a message that his enemy had taken significant damage. The hero wasn't going to rest on his laurels, so he rushed at the creature again and dealt 20 points of damage. Immediately afterwards, the system notified him that he had defeated the giant rat. It was easier than the hero expected, and he decided to check the rewards, which were plentiful. His agility increased from 2 to 3, and his strength increased to 3. His level was increased. Also, for defeating the first floor boss, Hen received a random characteristic improvement potion. In addition to the previous one, for finding the secret items on the floor, he received 2 potions of a specific characteristic. Hen immediately drank the potion. With the help of a random characteristic, he increased his strength by... Also, one of the potions of a specific characteristic increased his strength by 2 more points. So now Hen's strength level was 17. After completing only the first level, Hen already had 17 strength, 16 intelligence, and 30 dexterity, which was a great achievement. During the battle, Hen also gained a counterattack, a skill that was just as useful for a hero as a defensive one. After checking everything he wanted, the guy lay down to rest a bit on the body of the defeated boss. But at that moment, he remembered something. He laid out his strategy for getting through the first floor, even though he didn't expect much. The player asked for the route to the spring and was told that it was different for everyone, so he would have to follow the merchant's instructions. Tay added that he should keep his hands to himself. He would be safe at the spring, and if he stayed in the maze, it would only get worse. Everyone supported each other. Hen was surprised because the community was completely different before. During the first passage, no one even thought about any strategies, and all the words were filled with despair. In the end, everyone was so desperate that the chat room was completely silent. Everyone was desperate except Tae-young. Tae-young was asking where Kang Tae-sung had gone because she hadn't seen him since the last message. A few minutes later, Hyun came back to the shop to buy some new equipment. Hyun tried on a fighter's glove, which gave +1 to attack and protected his hands, so he could deal additional damage to the enemy. This made the merchant laugh, and he asked Heng if he could be taught air weapons by that crazy old man. The king also asked if Hen wanted to sell him only meat, because he could also give him the skin and teeth for money. The hero replied that he had other plans for them. The trader immediately realized that Hen wanted to find a blacksmith in the maze. The blacksmith of the labyrinth is Harfan. Tae said that without his help, she would not have been able to get this far on her own. The girl told the hero that she was able to find him far into the depths, so the boy realized that he had to hurry. This place was a little further away from the entrance to the maze, and with some probability, any player could have appeared there. The creatures that were there were not that strong, so the guy decided to start the quest on the second floor. As a reward, he received a mana increase potion, and he was surprised that it was so rare here. Just as he was about to leave, he started receiving millions of notifications that he had unread messages. He opened a chat and wrote in to ask what was going on. Immediately, he received millions of questions from other players. One of the players sent him a request for a personal conversation. He accepted the request, and they ended up in the same room with Jun. The hero asked what the player wanted from him, to which he replied that he just wanted to know if their savior was alive. Hyun asked why the player, after reading his post, started to rush here so crazily. Jun replied that he simply had no choice, because everyone was on the brink, and they had to grab any chance they could. If you don't enter the maze, you don't get food. The people who entered it had no choice, and the hunger was getting worse. It may not have meant anything to Hyun, but all the players needed his post about the strategy of the passage. Tae-young was the first to go, and she had supported the others before, so it was no surprise that everyone followed her. Hyun asked how many players managed to kill the rat. Jun replied that it was 2, him and Tae-young. The hero didn't know how Tae was doing, but this was the first time he had heard of this player. In his past life, he had died in a meaningless fight. Hyun added that soon the player would find a strange old man. He would attack him, but if he fought back, he would get something very useful. The attitude of this old man will directly depend on how cautious Jun's actions are. Jun asked if Hyun was okay and started to say some nonsense. Hyun slapped him and emphasized this. Hyun asked who Jun called his rival. The player replied that they were all people who faced the destruction of the planet. Heng emphasized that the reason for helping is very simple. The hero doesn't want the players to die at some stupid moment. Some people died even when they did everything according to the rules. The main thing in the maze is not to compete, but to come out of it strong. Jun emphasized that he hadn't even finished the first floor yet, so he was exaggerating a bit. Hyun asked what was going on in the community. The guy emphasized that they just communicate with other players. However, many of them, for some unknown reason, were getting into fights, and the player didn't pay attention to it, so he didn't know why. The hero immediately realized that those who couldn't find a place in the maze were slowly going crazy. After that, the guy said goodbye and left the room. The loner mode is on the second floor. Many people say that the first floor is just a training session. The real maze starts from the second one. After walking a little bit, the guy got to a room where he found a goblin archer, a swordsman, and a shield, and they started attacking. Goblins are monsters of the second floor, and it is very easy to deal with one of them. However, given how low their intelligence is, it becomes many times more difficult when they team up. Hen began to make attacks with his bow and block blows with his shield. He emphasized that it was a very good attack attempt. However, at the same moment, with the words that the monster would try to block it with his shield, he rushed at the goblin with an attack. He kept the monster pinned to the ground with his shield and struck with his sword, but it was completely pointless. Several goblins ran toward the hero to attack. Hen saw a very long sword in one of them, so he expected a blow from the monster. A few minutes later, the battle was over. The hero was holding a rusty sword, and he added 2 points to his attack power. The sword will be much more comfortable than the shield he got from the goblin. The shield gave plus 3 points to defense. In front of him, Hen saw a door that opened by itself. A message appeared that the hero had found the altar of Rakiratas. For finding this altar for the first time, Hen received a bonus. His intelligence increased by 1 and the amount of mana by 2. The maze gods are very different. Some were very friendly, while others were the opposite. Some are arrogant, while others are compassionate. Still, most of them consider the players to be their toys. Hen found an altar that belonged to the god of death. It was very tangible, because its power was much heavier and darker than any other power that Hen had felt. Hen received an additional quest. Rakitaris wants to test the one who came. For passing, the god will give a reward. The hero was not a coward, unlike Li Tai, who just ran away. He decided to accept the quest. A message appeared that an additional quest was starting and that Rakiratas was very pleased with the player's decision. In a few minutes, an illusion appeared in front of Hen. Rakitaris' servant, Hen had to defeat the knight. The hero immediately realized that it would not be easy. The enemy was very strong and also had armor. It was difficult to find a place to attack. The illusion rushed at Hen and launched an attack. The guy blocked it, but still received 25 points of damage. After that, the hero realized that if the damage is so high even after blocking, then there is no point in using a shield. From his inventory, Hen pulled out 2 swords, one slightly rusty and the other rusty. The hero hadn't used them like this for a long time. The guy attacked the illusion, but he didn't make a scratch. It was stronger, so there was no point in continuing. However, Hen immediately realized that he had to use his agility and began to deal damage. One of the swords got stuck in the enemy's armor, but it didn't stop Hen from striking. He continued to fight. Hen had to distance himself from the illusion and break its strategy. He had done this many times before, and it should work now. No sooner had the hero withdrawn than it was reported that Rakaratas was confused. Even though Hen was only on the 2nd floor, everything should have gone well. The god wanted to see a fierce battle, but it wasn't going to happen. Suddenly, reports began to appear that the servant had fully recovered. Hen saw Rakaratas himself in front of him. He was no longer seen as an illusion, and the atmosphere in the room had changed dramatically. From now on, the enemy had gained consciousness, so the tactics that had always worked before might not work at all. The guy was pulled out of these thoughts by the enemy, who quickly rushed at him. But Hen managed to defend himself. Despite his defense, the hero was still being hurt. Hen did not understand why the enemy started moving in a completely different way. Rakaratas threw the hero into the wall, dealing 25 points of damage. The enemy had perfect sword skills, as if he were an experienced knight, and Hen was facing this for the first time in his life. He holds the weapon, but cannot control it at all. Is this possible due to the great difference in skills? In the maze, every movement is evaluated, and based on the evaluation, a specific title or a specific skill is given, with thoughts that this skill is the most useful one he can get here. Hen got to his feet. The enemy was better with a sword, but Hen was a player, and Rakiratasu couldn't handle him with a sword alone. Hen threw a fireball at the enemy, which he cut through, but it was just a distraction. Hen was already behind him. He stabbed Rakaratas with his sword with all his might, dealing 6 points of damage. The enemy also started to attack, but it was pointless, so Hen activated division and received 15 points of damage. After that, Hen activated the attacks in one breath and began to hit his enemy non-stop, dealing damage. For hitting him consistently during the attacks, Hen gained the skill of consecutive attacks, but he was not interested in that. Hen attacked with his staff, dealing 13 points of damage, and he was able to set Rakaratas on fire. Hen had 5 mana and 70 health left, but if he retreated now, it would only get worse. There was nowhere to run, so Hen rushed to attack, but the enemy caught him. When Hen was in the air, Rakaratas put out his sword and pierced the guy, causing 80 points of damage. Luckily, the guy had a nullification, so by activating this skill, he canceled the damage and started attacking the enemy. Sitting on Rakaratas' neck, Hen attacked him so hard and so fast that his head flew off. Through the broken armor, Hen saw the face of a man, and the man said that the fight was good. Hen was very brave. It was reported that Rakaratas was pleased, but Hen was not happy about it at all. There were many reports. Hen had raised his level. Spiritual enhancement had been activated. Hen decided to check his stats. They increased by 17, mana by 5, and endurance by 30. Just as he thought he wouldn't get any equipment, a message appeared saying that he had passed the test. It was said that Rakaratas was very pleased with the battle and the god decided to reward Hen for it. Rakiratas' zone began to shrink, and as a reward, Hen received Rakiratas' ceremonial sword. This sword gave plus 5 points to attack, and the most valuable thing was that it restored health after killing an enemy. Hen was stunned. He didn't believe it was his at first, because it was very unusual equipment for the 2nd floor. On top of that, for completing the difficult training, Hen received the passive skill, Trace of Fighting. Now the skill was 1%, however. This skill could be strengthened during the battle with enemies. The ground began to shake, but that was not all. A new message appeared. Rakaratas was offering an apostle contract. Hen began to look for at least some explanation of what exactly this apostle's contract was, but nothing was written. It seems that when the gods want to influence a player, they have to get specific deprivations for it. It seems that Rakaratas was so eager to make Hen his disciple that he was ready to endure any punishment, but the hero did not know whether it was beneficial for him to accept this, because Rakaratas is a god who has already created chaos and a terrible mess. However, at the last moment, Hen was afraid that he might become a slave to the god for the rest of his life. So he refused the offer. Just as the hero began to think that everything was fine and Rakaratas was not angry with his actions, something strange began to happen. A message appeared saying that Rakaratas wanted to test the player again, and Hen had to kill all the monsters on the second and third floors and return. However, Hen did not want to accept it. If the god lied to him once, he would do it again. The guy could not trust him. After the refusal, a new message appeared saying the same thing, and Hen realized that he had no choice. A message appeared saying that the additional quest was accepted and Rakaratas was satisfied with the player's choice. A few minutes later, Hen returned to the ground floor to the merchant, saying that he needed to buy something. He needed some potions, and when the merchant asked him why he needed them, he said that he would need them. He had no intention of buying anything at all, but if he encountered any problems on his quest, the potions would help. The merchant noticed Hen's new sword and said that Rakiratas had spent a lot of money on the boy. The trader emphasized that this crazy god was not the first person to lose their head because of him. He does whatever he wants. Hen realized that Rakiratas had been doing this for a long time, so he decided to ask what an apostle's contract was. Asking if he had offered the boy a contract, the trader replied that Hen had done the right thing by refusing. Looking down, the peddler said that it had been going on for a long time, but he could not say anything. Raising his head, the man said that to Hen he was just a trader. He was not allowed to say anything else. The man also emphasized that it was because of an agreement, and that was the reason he was here. Hen started to leave, and the king added that if he wanted to come back to the shop, he could come to the second floor. While the boy was leaving, he went into the general chat, said hello, and asked if Tai and Jun had met the knight. Tae didn't even know what Hyun was asking, and Jun emphasized that the man looked nothing like the hero described. Jun emphasized that the man just walked up, spat in his face, and started walking away. In fact, the boy was simply unable to repel his attack, but that was not surprising because the knight had confused him. Tae replied that she had also met him, but she could not help but move. Hyun asked if Jun had just grabbed onto him, and the boy replied that he had, but the knight told him to let go. The knight reacts only to those who can repel his attack, the same principle that dwarves and Rakaratas follow. Hyun asked where the players were now. Jun and Tai were now on the first floor and were leveling up by killing rats. The hero asked about the other players. Jun said that several others had started hunting rats. Hyun decided to talk about the second floor later, but now he decided to talk about the huge boss rat. The hero emphasized that the rat has about 200 health and that blocking does not save from its attacks. Jun asked how Hyun dealt with it. He told them to think for themselves because he couldn't tell them everything. In the end, Hyun ordered his friends to tell the other players all this information so that they wouldn't die. Happy that he had conveyed all the information, Hen closed the chat and decided it was time to start the quest. The hero walked along the walls of the maze and banged his sword against the shield to attract the attention of the goblins, which worked very well. During the fight, the guy also decided to try new skills, so after activating the fight trace, he rushed into the attack. Hen's head was as clear as ever. He liked this state because it healed and increased all characteristics. There were no restrictions at all. If it continued like this, Hen would be able to continue fighting forever. He was enjoying it so much, he even started to think that this skill could become his main skill. Suddenly, when the guy had dealt with all the goblins, his attention was drawn to a strange door he had never seen before in the maze. Wasting no time, the hero decided to check it out. Upon entering, he received a message that he had found the grave of a warrior. He also received a message that Hen had received a bonus for the find. His intelligence increased by 1 and his mana by 2. Hen went over and rubbed the grave. Suddenly, a small spirit flew out of it and greeted the hero. However, after that, it immediately returned to the grave. Hen did not understand what had just happened. Out of confusion, Hen rubbed the grave again. The spirit flew out again, said it was nice to meet him, and returned. Hen did the same thing again. The spirit flew out a little angry, but the hero managed to catch it before it returned. He squeezed it with all his might and told it to stop making these jokes and give the boy a new quest. The spirit flew out of his hand and asked if the boy knew who he was. Hen replied that he was, of course, the spirit of a dead warrior. The spirit emphasized that everything is very easy now. There is no need to risk your life for information. Everything is reported by the system. Hen asked if the system hadn't worked before the maze appeared. The spirit stuck out its tongue and said that it did. The hero did not understand what was wrong with this spirit, because its aura was very different from the NPCs he had already met. Hen asked if he would give him a task or if he was just an object. The spirit was angry that he was being treated like a thing. After exhaling, the spirit emphasized that he was a ghost who was here to give players tasks. He added that he did not share tasks with random weaklings. Hen asked why he was only on the second floor. The spirit was angry, saying that he hadn't decided anything and told him to come back when he was at least on the third floor. Hen thought that he was just unlucky and that this stupid NPC was not worth his humiliation, so he started to leave. As soon as the spirit said goodbye to the guy, he saw that he had a Rakirata's sword and flew up to ask him where he got it. The boy replied that he had fulfilled his task. The spirit was surprised because Rakirata's was very capricious. The spirit got in Hen's face and said that he had changed his mind and was now ready to give him his task. He also added that the boy should come to him to explain the task, but Hen didn't want to do that anymore. The spirit began to tell him that when he was a famous warrior, people believed that he would be the first to complete the maze. In his attempts to break through to the depths of the labyrinth, the warrior met a strong opponent, so he returned to the 10th floor to rest. He was almost out of health, even though low-level monsters could not even break through his defense. He fell asleep, but the boss of the 10th floor had a weapon with an automatic attack and he hit the warrior right in his sleep. The spirit was angry that the hero, who was able to clear the depths of the maze, died from some bot. The spirit emphasized that he had only one task for Hen. He had to kill the boss of the 10th floor, and then he would receive a reward. Hen realized that the task was not very good, because the reward would depend on the mood of this stupid spirit. The spirit asked if the hero accepted the quest. Although Hen realized that it would be a very long quest, he agreed anyway. As soon as he opened the door, the spirit sat on Hen's head. The hero asked him if he was going with him, and he said yes. The spirit flew around and bothered the guy, saying that he had to find out if he really killed his boss and that he was tired of being at the grave. The hero was not at all happy about the fact that he would always have to be with this chatterbox up to the 10th floor. The heroes walked a little bit, but the spirit did not stop. He cried and asked when the boss managed to get an automatic attack. Weapons with this attack don't appear until after the 10th floor, and he wondered if Hyun knew how the boss managed to get it. Hen asked what the spirit had been doing before the maze, and the hero asked why he had to tell him everything. The hero turned away and said that if he didn't want to, he didn't have to tell him. The spirit was a little bit sad about this, so he emphasized that if Hen asked him to, he would. Before the labyrinth, the warrior was from the great royal empire of Karvut. He was the eldest son and the future heir, but even that was not all he was. The spirit emphasized that he was unsurpassed, skillful with the sword, intelligent, and there was no one better than him in the empire. These were very good moments for the spirit. Hen thought that he was more of a street thug because of the way he spoke. The spirit continued to say that later, the end of the world came and he came to save everyone, but before he could finish, Hen interrupted and added that he was dead. He fell asleep on a low floor and died. The spirit emphasized that he had failed at the very end and would now be at peace only when his killer was in the grave. However, Hen was not interested at all, and at the door he asked if this was the last time. The spirit asked if the boy was even listening to him. The spirit began to say that travelers have no manners now. And Hen opened the door and saw a bunch of goblins. The hero wasted no time in paralyzing one of the goblins with an arrow and stabbing it with his sword, and then did it again. The spirit asked what the boy was doing now, why he was hitting the same goblin several times. After thinking a bit, he asked if the boy wanted to learn the skill. Hen replied that the spirit was very guessing. The spirit emphasized that it was not enough to be guessing and added that the boy was making a fool of himself. He would not get the skill that way. Hen replied that he would. However, the spirit did not believe him, and he offered to bet that if he still could not, he would become his slave. He added that he would do whatever he was ordered to do, even kill himself if necessary. But if the hero wins, the spirit must answer all the questions honestly. The spirit emphasized that Hyun was very brave. However, there was no point in refusing, so the spirit agreed and once again stated all the conditions of their dispute. However, Hen could not win the argument, and in a few minutes, at the spirit's order, he was crawling on his hands and feet on the floor. The spirit was very pleased. It did not know what else to do, because it could have fun until Hen died. However, Hen kept trying, and the spirit asked if it was time for the boy to give up. The hero asked him if he knew about the battle skill. The spirit replied that of course he had heard of this basic skill. When two people start fighting, a third person cannot intervene. After that, the hero emphasized that he could get something just like that. The spirit did not understand what he was talking about. However, a second later, a message appeared saying that Hen had gained the active skill Forced Combat. Long damage, poisoning, confusion, frightening, and so on is a basic skill that has different effects, and Hen finally got it. The spirit was surprised, because this skill can help you survive even if you are stuck in lava or outer space. And you can get it by doing such nonsense. Hung emphasized that this is not the worst way to acquire the skill. With a sly look at the spirit, Hen asked if it had not forgotten the terms of their bet. The spirit was very unhappy. The spirit emphasized that Hen had won and added that he was different from other characters because he had no limitations. Hen looked at him evilly and told him not to talk for nothing and to start answering his questions. The spirit emphasized that forced combat is a good skill. It's just that there are other skills in the maze, such as jumping. Hen asked why a simple jump and not a huge one. The spirit was stunned because he had not studied it. The spirit admitted that Hen was very good at the skill, but it was not enough in the maze, so he asked what the boy was doing. The boy was walking and knocking on bricks, looking for a secret room. The spirit emphasized that he would have some difficulties. Thanks to the detection skill, the boy found the right brick, and when the skill is higher than 20%, the information is automatically revealed. Standing in a long corridor and looking around, Hen realized that this time the traps were related to goblins. The spirit emphasized that they had better go back, because the traps were placed in a random order, and it would be very difficult to break through. Using detection again, Hen realized that the arrows came first, then the sand trap, and finally the moving walls. Recalling the previous passage of the maze, the hero realized that the room was not at all different from the one on the easy level. Without wasting time, Hen rushed to pass the traps, using the wall to run through the trap with arrows. The guy hit the wall with all his might and broke it, since it was not part of the maze. Its strength was not that great. The spirit decided it was better not to ask how Hen did it. Meanwhile, the hero was already turning off all the traps because he had reached the end. Approaching the chest, he pulled out a ring of mana, which added +5 to the total amount of mana the hero had. The spirit was stunned by the boy's actions, so it flew up and asked permission to ask who he was, who had such skills and knowledge. Hen realized that the spirit did not know at all. To get to Ouroboros, you have to go up more than 85 floors. About 10 days had passed since Hen had entered the maze for the second time. Entering the chat room, Heng saw other players discussing a plan on how to deal with the huge rat. They asked Zhang how he managed it. He replied that it was no match for the guy who came in much earlier than them. After reading the message, Hen realized that now was a good opportunity. The spirit asked what he was doing. He joined the chat and said hello to everyone. The other players were surprised because it was the first time they had seen him. Jun asked him why he decided to go to the public page. Hyun replied that now was the time to share the news. Jun emphasized that only about half of the people who had reached the source had managed to deal with the rat. Hyun asked how Jun and Tai were doing. Jun replied that he had run away from his boss because he had almost gone crazy after the first blow. Tae replied that she was too. The girl is looking for another way because her strength will not allow her to fight the rat on equal terms. After listening to the players' stories, Hyun cleared his throat and emphasized that he had come to tell the loners about the skills. Jun asked why now. Hyun said that now was the best time because skills are a very good way to complete the maze. Tae emphasized that if they had just entered the maze, they wouldn't have realized what they needed to do with them anyway. The other players immediately started thanking Hyun, as they thought it was very useful information for them. Hen emphasized that he would talk about the easiest skill. He wanted to talk about how to get the pain relief. Hen emphasized that everyone should put the sword as deep as possible into their arm. The sword should reach the bones to count as a skill. The players began to ask if Heng was seriously telling them to pierce their arms. The hero emphasized that they had a source in front of them. Hen added that if they fought with the rat in this state, they would be able to gain the skill, Unwavering Will. The players were not in the best mood, and they began to doubt whether they would be able to get the next skill at all with such conditions. Heng also said that players could easily get the skill of holding their breath and attacking with their breath. Hearing this, the players were again stunned by what was said, because Heng was again forcing them to commit suicide. Heng also talked about endurance, where players had to block 30 attacks from a rat with only 1 point of health. After hearing Heng's story, the players were outraged and asked if they had to learn all these skills through very absurd methods. For Heng, this reaction was predictable. He emphasized that the hero had no reason to force them to do anything. They all used to be human beings. The war was only in their history, and the famine was far, far behind them. While they lived like this, they never risked their lives, so their attitudes cannot change drastically to fit the rules of the maze. Tae came closer to the hero and asked if there was no other way to get it. Hyun replied that yes, there was. Jun and Tae agreed to these conditions, but the other players did not understand them and asked if they were serious. One of the players said that it could be a lie. Jun emphasized that they had all listened to Hyun and were still alive. Jun asked if holding your breath was the easiest skill. Hung replied that it was fine if you got out of the water in time. As the other players watched Jun learn the details of the skill, they did not believe that he would actually do it. With the words that they should work harder and he would come back to tell them about the other skills, Hyun left the general chat. The spirit emphasized that it didn't matter what advice he would give them, because the players were destined to die in this maze. He continued to say that they had already come to the right place, and Han decided to talk about strange topics with other players. Standing with Hen at the huge door, the spirit shouted that it was time to hunt for the boss for a while. As they were leaving, the spirit asked if Hen was going to get information from him about the boss of this floor, since the hero had won the bet. The boy, emphasizing that it made no sense and he wanted to ask him something else, opened the door of the boss of the second floor of the maze. Immediately, the boy was informed that a goblin commander and one goblin defender had appeared. The goblin boss was holding a strange staff with several mouths on it, speaking in an unfamiliar language. Hen repelled the goblin defender with his shield, and the spirit tried to tell the hero that now was not the time for this. The spirit tried to tell him that he should attack the boss first, because he was doing something completely incomprehensible to them. But Hen understood it all himself. Hen knew what he had to do, and for him, this method was the right one. The goblin bewitched the hero, and he found himself in a strange place where there were thousands of creatures that resembled people when frozen. These monsters began to blame Heng, saying that everyone had died because the hero had chosen an easy mode. One of them grabbed Heng by the arm and started asking him why he was born, because it was all the boy's fault. He was miserable garbage. Turning his head to the side, the hero saw Tae, who was almost dead, saying the boy's name. Tae burst into tears and began to ask why the hero had left her, why he hadn't come to her aid and left her to die. A huge wave of these creatures appeared and covered the hero. Hen emphasized that it would not work on him. The spirit was over the guy, and for the first time in a long time, he thought that he could leave that grave. But the guy did not listen to his advice. As soon as the spirit thought that he would not get his revenge again, Hen opened his eyes and told the goblin to shove the hallucinations back in his head. It was reported that thanks to his iron will, Hen was able to withstand the attack. The hero broke the goblin commander's spell with his sword, and the boss could not understand what had just happened. The goblin commander fell into a rage and began to attack. However, Hen easily repelled all these attacks and approached him. It was reported that the goblin commander was confused and used a curse. But Hen kept coming at him, saying that unfortunately for the boss, he would never lose to psychic attacks. Hen walked over and grabbed the boss by the neck, and a message appeared saying that the hero had withstood several psychic and magical attacks. For this battle, the hero was able to gain 2 permanently active skills: mental resistance and resistance to magic. The spirit was surprised that the boy was able to withstand a psychic attack, because even he was not capable of such a thing. He had planned to control Heng's actions and gradually provide information, but he turned out to be a real psycho. Once again, the spirit could not understand who Hen really was. For killing the goblin, Hyun received a low-level mana increase potion, and his mana permanently increased by 10. He also received a set of lockpicks. He could not believe that he would receive such items as a secret reward. The spirit asked if Han was really not missing anything on the second floor before moving on to the third. After walking a bit, a message appeared in front of the hero that he had started the task of the third floor. After that, the guy decided to visit the king, and the man was happy to see the boy. However, at the same moment, a ghost flew out. The merchant knew him well and asked Heng if he had taken the task from him. The king emphasized that the ghost was just a noisy loser. The hero should not allow him to influence him in any way. Immediately after that, the spirit and the merchant began to argue even more, but they completely forgot about Hen. To end it all, Hen threw a large number of weapons in front of him and said that he wanted to get something useful for it. The king was simply stunned by the amount of everything. He asked the hero how many monsters he could kill to get it all. In exchange for the broken weapons, Hen bought himself spiked gloves that increased his attack by 2, a bronze shield that increased attack by 1 and defense by 5, 2 rings that increased attack by a total of 3 units. The last thing he bought was a power pendant that increased his attack by 2. Hen was happy with the new equipment. The spirit believed that the old man had tricked him, but the king emphasized that this was the art of aerial weaponry. After these words, they continued to argue again. The boy, who was tired of it, emphasized that he was leaving. Hen asked the spirit why they were in such a relationship. The spirit replied that it was impossible to love an old man who was weak in the mind. Hen should also be afraid of him because the old man definitely needs something from the boy and he can turn against Hen at any time. He is not an ordinary old man. For people like Hen, he is an enemy. The spirit emphasized that the hero remembered these words very well. Hen immediately realized that it must have started when the warrior was alive. He said he would keep that in mind. When Hen walked through, he saw 3 goblins in front of him, which he dealt with in a few seconds. As the hero walked, breaking through the walls, the spirit emphasized that this floor was not fun for him at all. Usually this place is very difficult. There are several goblins with staffs and psychic attacks in each room. The spirit asked if Hen really thought there was any point in rushing. The hero emphasized that this floor was easier than the other. The spirit asked why the guy was trying to kill everyone because it wouldn't help him level up at his level. Hen, opening the door to a room, emphasized that he had a quest from Rakiratas, who said to kill all the monsters on the floor. The spirit also received quests from him, but he did not give him these. That's why Hen wanted to ask the spirit something. Sitting down on a rock, the hero looked at the spirit and asked how much it knew about the apostles' contract. The spirit was not surprised that the boy had also heard about them. He asked if Henu Rakiratas had also been offered one. The spirit sat on Henu's head and did not know where to begin. The hero asked if he could tell him everything without making too much noise. He emphasized that although he was tied to this place, he had no restrictions and asked if he could start from the beginning. Each god rules his own territory, some for victory, some for defeat, Rakiratas for death and conflict. There are gods of concept who rule only over a specific concept, and there are many variants of different shapes and sizes. Hen decided to ask what it means to be a god in the labyrinth. The spirit emphasized that they were the ones who helped build the labyrinth. The spirit asked if Hen remembered the system window that appeared as soon as he entered the labyrinth. This labyrinth was created by a powerful magician. There is a legend that the one who passes it will get 1 wish. Even for such a powerful magician, it was difficult to build it alone, so he looked for other enlightened ones to do it. His wish was to create a majestic labyrinth, a tower that gradually descends into the abyss. For this reason, he called a small number of warriors and heroes at his own risk. The mighty wizard told them about the challenge they were facing, and he emphasized that they would be fighting for their lives, not their deaths. He also told them about their inevitable deaths, and did they really want to see that too? Hen said that the gods liked the idea. The spirit added that they not only liked it, they were jumping for joy and happily all supported the magician's idea. And so, when an infinite amount of time had passed, the gods finally built this place, the labyrinth. And the gods occupied their cities in the created labyrinth, deep down, right on the bottom floor. From there, they began to single out some people, testing them and giving them attention to determine their value. And to those in whom they were really interested, they made an offer. That is what the apostles' contract is. After hearing this, the hero could not fully understand whether it was good or bad, so he asked the spirit. The spirit replied that if you become an apostle, you can get as many powers as God is willing to give you. Hen asked what the disadvantages were. The spirit emphasized that the soul of the one who agrees will belong to God. Other gods may start to dislike the player, because there are a lot of gods and they all want different things. For example, Rakiratas has a lot of enemies. There are many who don't like him. They really consider him a disgrace. If Hen accepts the contract from Rakiratas and goes lower, the other gods might try to make him uncomfortable. Also, Hen will have to obey all the gods' orders because he gives him power, even if the orders are against the hero himself. Hen began to think that he should refuse the opportunity to be someone's apostle, but the one who passes the labyrinth is guaranteed a wish. By victory, they mean a clean sweep, but Tae never said anything about a wish being granted. Hyun began to think that Ouroboros's Bezoar was exactly what the girl wished for herself for passing. However, if we are talking about the Tae he knew before the rewind, the girl would definitely choose something else. Something doesn't add up in the first paragraphs, and if you collect the stories of the spirit, you get the following. The travelers themselves challenged the labyrinth in the hope of getting their wish. But what about the people from Earth? Although he still didn't understand many things, he had to keep moving to complete the labyrinth. For now, Hen had to focus on what he could do at the moment, so he asked the spirit if he was ready to go on. Hen immediately decided to try using the lockpicks, which he did very well and disarmed the traps. It was for this that the hero received the skill Disarming Traps, which cost 1 mana, but it was not yet of a sufficient level. Hen approached the trap and tried to disarm it, but due to his lack of level, he was unable to do so. The spirit was very angry that Hen was able to find the secret room very quickly, but was spending a lot of time on a meaningless skill. The spirit said that Hen could just run through the traps, but the boy emphasized that he didn't know the place that well. If he's trying to clear a place he doesn't know about, the more he learns, the more trumps he'll have. The hero doesn't know when, where, or how he might need it, so it's better to take absolutely everything you can get out of there. The spirit realized that Hen was doing the right thing, because he was not the kind of person who used such tactics. The skill's mastery increased by 3%, and, as a reward, Hen received a curved ring that gave +3 to his strength. After leaving the secret room, the guy was very happy, because on this floor he only had to kill the boss. The spirit flew up and said that this floor was goblins, and asked if the hero had any idea what the boss might be like there. Hen opened the door to the boss and told the spirit that everything was pretty obvious here, so they didn't have to look any further. A large goblin with huge fangs appeared in front of the team. It was the floor boss, the goblin leader. The spirit emphasized that judging by the look of this leader, he already knew for sure that Hen had completely cleared the goblins from the floor. The goblin also had a staff and immediately began to attack, and a message appeared that the leader was attacking with a wave. With the words that he was not the only one who could swing a staff here, Hen took out the staff he had gotten from the last boss. Using the staff, he tried to embarrass the boss, but unfortunately, it didn't work. However, while he was checking to see if he could activate the embarrassment, Hen dealt 20 points of damage with his sword, which made the boss angry. The boss began to make his attacks, but they were very slow. Because of his size, Hen easily dodged them. The spirit was very bored, as he expected that at this stage, the goblin leader would not be an opponent for the hero. During one of the boss's attacks, Hen jumped up to the mountain and landed directly on the boss's head, killing him. Messages began to pour in. As a basic reward, Hen received a potion to increase his survivability. He also received a wooden staff, which was the first time he had seen such a characteristic, so he didn't know what it did. The staff added 3 to his magic. The spirit emphasized that the hero was very lucky to get such a weapon. The boy asked what it was. The spirit said that it was a staff that would allow the hero to use magic. Hen would be able to strengthen the magic he had already learned with the staff. The boy did not know that magic could be learned. The spirit did not understand how the boy could not know this, because he had already met monsters who used it. Hen thought that in order to use magic, he had to limit himself to the magic in the staff, so he asked the spirit how he could learn it. The spirit emphasized that there were 2 ways to do this. Discover a new concept for yourself, or learn from someone else. The first option was on the verge of being impossible, so Hen decided to opt for the second, wondering if there were any such NPCs here. This makes sense, because NPCs are strong on loners, and Tae didn't say anything because she couldn't just find him. However, at the moment, the hero could not learn magic yet. The spirit emphasized that they had to hurry. But Hen replied that if he had already completed the quest, he had to go back and see Rakiratas first. But there was something wrong. He only got a level reward and a reward for clearing the 3rd floor. There was no secret reward, and Hen began to think that there was something else hidden on this floor. The spirit asked what it could be. Since the hero had killed the boss and found a secret room, could there really be 2 of them? The team approached the strange drawings on the wall, but the spirit didn't know what they meant, because he hadn't even found the room. Hen would waste too much time if he searched the entire floor again. Should he give up and not get the secret reward? But at the last moment, having taken a good look at the drawings, the hero noticed that they all look at the same point. The guy walked up to the wall, put his hand to it, and activated the skill neutralizing traps. Immediately afterwards, a hole appeared in the center of the wall. The spirit was stunned and asked what Hen had just done. The boy replied that only this part was made of the same material as the trap door in the secret room. When they entered the room, they saw an old goblin. The message said that it was the past Lord Hagaha. It was the first time Hyun had ever met a monster with a name. The spirit emphasized that something was wrong, because it was strange that there was a monster with the class of Lord. Lords, as the name implies, are the kings of their race. There can only be one of them. They surpass all the ideas of their race. The goblin, who had been sitting motionless in his chair, abruptly stretched out his hand and took hold of a huge sword. Hen heard a very rough voice. The goblin began to speak, and he emphasized that he did not harbor any anger toward the team. After all, they were just toys that had been dragged here. Nevertheless, he is a creature who has been given the role of a monster here, and that's why the goblin is about to kill Han. Immediately afterwards, he swung his sword and injured the hero. Luckily, Hank has a knockback. If he didn't have this skill, he would have been on the verge of death. Hank didn't realize what kind of attack it was. Not expecting the next one, Hen immediately rushed as close as possible to the Lord, and they crossed their swords. The goblin was incredibly strong, and the hero did not understand how an old man could have such strength. Now Hen's strength level was 37, which was enough to reach the 50th floor on the easy level. However, at the loner level, in this battle, the guy could barely resist ordinary attacks. The Lord's weapon is a two-handed sword. Hen should have a great advantage due to his mobility and agility. Hen began to run around the Lord, but the goblin asked if Hen thought he was the only one who had thought of doing so. Activating a powerful attack, the goblin hit the hero with the handle of his sword, but Hen managed to activate a deflection and survived. But in this state, he couldn't even retreat, so the hero had to hold on for the 10 seconds the skill was active. Realizing that he would not be able to react to the attack in this state, Hen activated the pairing. Now, without wasting his energy and without worrying about anything, Hen could automatically control the enemy's attacks. He had to hold out for 5 seconds, but the Lord hit him. There were only 3 seconds left. The hero's position was broken because the guy was too focused on dodging the enemy's sword. Hagaha again, activating a powerful kick, launched an attack. Hyun used a deflection to stay alive. However, it was not so effective, and the hero received 46 points of damage from this attack. There were 0 seconds left. The spirit emphasized that they should retreat and come back later when Hen was stronger. However, the boy decided to continue. The spirit was angry, and it emphasized that this was not a creature that would be easy to deal with. The hero emphasized that if his priority is safety, he will get nothing by leaving, his reward will decrease dramatically. The player can freely move around the floors, but as soon as he steps on the next one, the reward for this one will decrease. Therefore, if Hen wants to get everything from this floor, he has no right to retreat. The spirit did not understand the hero's actions at all, because he had been working so hard to improve his skills, and now he was acting so recklessly. The hero emphasized that he did not understand what the spirit was talking about, because he had done everything to cope with it. All the rewards were collected, and all the monsters were killed, not for the sake of just giving up at the last moment. It wasn't for the sake of some kind of survival, rather. In this battle, Hen puts his life on the line. It was all just to increase the protagonist's chance of success in battles. A message appeared that for bravery, all characteristics increased, and Hen received eyes that show the enemy's weakness. During this battle, the hero would be unwavering. His fighting spirit grew, and his willpower increased several hundred times. Heng realized that those who created the maze would not have put an invincible enemy on the 3rd floor, so there were chances. If you analyze everything carefully, the Lord had never gotten up from his throne, which meant he had no legs. And also, he was a lord in the past, but not now. In any case, he would not get up from his throne, which gave him a great chance to win. The goblin emphasized that he respected that Hen was not backing down, and added that he would also fight for real now. The Lord asked how the hero would approach him this time. Hen hit the wall with all his might, and large pieces of the columns began to fall on the goblin. The goblin emphasized that Hen had used his head, but the debris would also fall on the boy. Using one of the staffs, Hen tried to activate the confusion and throw a fireball. Fireballs and arrows began to fly at the goblin from all sides, and he wondered if it was all happening for real. Realizing that it was for real, the Lord, saying that Hen would not do anything like that, deflected all the arrows. However, Hen was already behind him and pierced him with his sword. The Lord asked how the boy had dodged all the shrapnel. Hen emphasized that it was a skill of forced combat. No one but the Lord could have stopped him. This also applies to the debris. During the skill, only the enemy's weapon or what the enemy throws at you can interfere. However, Hen also wondered if the throne of the Goblin Lord would be an exception to this skill. Activating forced combat again, Hen threw the throne and the goblin forward. The Lord, who was flying to his death, emphasized that he was very impressed by how skillfully the boy used his skills. Finally, the old man added that he thanked all the gods that his last battle was against Hen. The spirit felt it. The Hen he was watching used only his own characteristics to win. Because of this, the spirit was incredibly excited about meeting a very strong opponent. The goblin asked him what he was going to do, because if he couldn't get close to him, he wouldn't be able to strike the last blow. And the goblin would do everything to prevent the boy from taking a step. After that, he inflicted 462 points of damage on Hen. But the hero managed to survive, because he managed to activate his stamina. The Goblin Lord did not understand what was happening. Hen emphasized that the effect of the stamina cancels out the fatal attack, which means that the guy is invulnerable for exactly 1 second. And Hen didn't need more than that. He rushed with incredible speed and finished off the Lord. Before dying, the goblin was stunned. And this time, finally, the passage of the 3rd floor was completed. Hen checked his performance after the battle. For completing the floor, he received several bonus skills. For activating the increase in soul quality, Hen received the Lord's skill, Powerful Punch. He was curious what it did. After reading it, the hero realized that from now on, his damage from attacks increases in proportion to the mana he spends. In Hen's past life, he would hardly have been able to get this, which is why the battle with the Goblin Lord was so difficult. And the secret reward on the floor was a skill increase potion, and Hen was very happy with this reward. Also, for the battle with the Lord, the hero received a master's necklace, and putting it on, he asked the spirit why he was so quiet. At this rate, Hen will become stronger on the 5th floor than in his previous life, the hero thought. This is the answer. The spirit looked at the boy evilly and said that if he was done with the hunt, they should move on. But before moving on to the next floor, they had to go down and finish the task, which the team did. The spirit was very scared. The message came out that Rakiratas was very pleased and wanted to give a reward. Rakiratas knew for sure that there was a lord on the 3rd floor and gave the task to Hen anyway. The hero was once again offered the chance to become an apostle, which he refused, which scared the spirit even more. A message appeared that as a reward, Hen received an unbreakable shield, and the skill Strengthening with an Unbreakable Shield. He did not understand what kind of shield it was. The spirit, by the way, also heard about it for the first time at that moment. After reading the characteristics, Hen realized that the shield provides a second health. As long as it is active, he does not take damage. The fog disappeared from the room, and the message emphasized that Rakiratas was waiting for the next meeting with the guy. The hero asked if the spirit should stop hiding, to which he asked if he would change his mind after learning the truth about God. A message appeared saying that the 4th floor task was starting, and Hyun would receive ash shoulder pads as a reward. According to Lee Tai's stories, the 4th floor was the floor of orcs. Each of them is quite strong physically. However, their intelligence is not much different from their physical strength. Usually, they are whole tribes, and Hen was curious about what awaited him there. But first of all, according to the stories, the boy went into a room with an altar of Baltazar. This place is connected to the god, and believers in him built an altar here. Baltazar can manifest his influence from here. Baltazar was the god of victory. It was difficult for the spirit to call him good or evil. He was more normal. There was a message that Baltazar wanted to test the guy, so he offered him a test. Hen agreed, after which Baltazar was pleased with his decision and began to test Hen's battle experience. The hero was surprised that a god could study. The spirit emphasized that since he was the god of victory, he would decide whether the boy was worthy of his attention. After scanning Hen, Baltazar offered him a test. The hero was not happy because he had just finished the past. The spirit emphasized that Hen could accept the test. Gods usually do not break contracts. Only Rakiratas, the white crow, is among them. After some thought, Hen decided to accept it. The message emphasized that Baltazar was pleased. Immediately after that, two messages appeared. The god received the consent of the residents of the 4th and 5th floors and 20 against 1. Suddenly, the 4th floor began to change. Hen had never seen this before and did not understand what was happening. In a few seconds, it was over. The spirit also emphasized that it was the first time he had ever experienced such a thing. Hen ran to the door that had just appeared. When he opened it, he saw that the labyrinth had become a straight corridor. The spirit emphasized that Baltazar was one of the builders of the labyrinth, so it was possible to pass through it, although difficult. With the words that it was unlikely that anything would happen if he just stood there, Hen went to check the rooms in the corridor. Opening one of the doors, a message appeared that there was an orc armed with a sword in this room. It was huge. Hen wondered if there were monsters like that here, because he began to understand the meaning of the recent vote. The orc immediately swung and attacked with his sword. Although the hero managed to block it, he still received 14 points of damage. Looking at his stats, Hen realized that his health was fine, which meant that his shield was the first to suffer. Hen jumped up and attacked the orc, but he did not die. The hero did not know why, because in his past life, he would have been dead. The spirit realized that the meaning of the test of God is to fight one-on-one until one person achieves victory. Baltazar also improved the monsters a lot. Activating the strong blow, the guy attacked the orc right in the chest. A message appeared that the orc was satisfied with the good battle and that he was defeated. It was not so difficult for the boy, but the spirit emphasized that there was no point in starting with the difficult part. Everything would still be in front. And Hen had 9 more rooms to go through, and the hero was very curious to see if he could break through them. Hen easily passed all the rooms, and now he had 5 left. They looked hostile, but the hero was not afraid. Opening the characteristics, the guy saw that the health of the shield had increased. He thought that it increased in proportion to his health. Opening the door of room 6, the orc immediately began to attack the hero, but he managed to use a deflection. Hen believed that the difference in the characteristics of him and the orcs was very large, but he could not defeat them in one blow. These baddies don't just swing their weapons. There is a systematic approach to their skills, and simple copying won't help the hero. Hen will have to find someone to teach him the skill. The spirit asked if the hero lacked sword skills. Hen asked why the spirit was talking about this so suddenly, and the spirit replied that everything was fine and that they should go to the next room. The 7th, 8th, and 9th rooms also turned out to be not so difficult, and now Hen was standing in front of the boss's room. The hero asked the spirit how to find the secret room on the floor, to which he replied that it was the first time he had seen it, so he didn't know. Thinking that he would have to look through every corner of the boss's room, Hen opened the door and saw an orc fighter in front of him. Just as Hen thought that the boss was just as he had been told, he heard a girl in a strange hat crying in the corner. The girl was begging for someone to save her, because everything happened so fast and she didn't have time to react. The spirit shouted to the girl and asked why she was still alive. She turned to the team and asked if it was a warrior. The girl immediately ran to the team, begging them to save her. The girl screamed that the maze had changed dramatically, and when she came to, she saw that she was standing next to an orc warrior. The spirit, laughing and pointing at the boy, said that it was because of him that everything had changed here. The girl could believe it. The hero emphasized that he would first deal with the orc and then return, because he thought that the NPC girl would give him a reward. The girl asked if this loner could handle the orc. The spirit replied that everything would be fine. She just had to sit and wait. Approaching the orc, the hero realized that this giant did not even look at the girl, which means that his target was Hen. Activating the acceleration, saying that he would respond in kind, Hen rushed to attack the orc warrior. When the hero was behind the boss, he activated a strong punch and activated the orc's berserker mode with an attack. After activating the acceleration with a strong punch again, the hero approached the boss and was able to kill him with one attack. A message appeared saying that Hen had defeated the 4th floor boss and that he had leveled up. The girl sat there stunned. She didn't understand how a traveler from the 4th floor could so easily deal with an orc warrior. She asked Hen what he was. The hero replied in surprise that he was an ordinary player, he couldn't be anything else. Coming closer and sitting down on his knees next to the girl, Hen asked her who she was. The girl replied in confusion that her name was Lilis, the one who summoned magic. She had come to this place only to learn a little more about the great mysteries. Hen was surprised to hear her say that she was talking about magic. Lilith called Hen's world very strange because it doesn't exist in it. Lilith emphasized that not everyone can study magic. It must be a talent that is given from birth. The girl had a lot of such talent, but she wanted to learn magic much more than anyone else, and that's why she came to this place. In the labyrinth, Lilith will finally be able to achieve her long-awaited dream. The girl thanked Hen for saving her, but she could not give anything in return. The hero emphasized that there was something he could do. The girl began to tell him that she really had nothing. Turning his head, Hen said he wanted the power she had. Coming closer to Lily, the hero emphasized that he wanted the girl to teach him how to use magic. Lily replied that she was grateful for the rescue, but she could not do that because she had started studying it herself, risking her life. Hen didn't know whether to start persuading the girl. The spirit asked why the girl shouldn't just teach the boy how to do it. Although the spirit realized how much Lilith valued her skills, in a global sense, she had nothing special at all. Looking her straight in the eye, he asked her if the life he had saved was not worth such a small return. Just as she was about to object, the spirit added that she had also benefited and asked her how many floors she had walked. The girl replied that she had been to 9. The spirit thought so because he believed that with such weak skills, Lilith would not go further. The spirit, pointing to Hen, said that he would continue to storm the labyrinth and that he was recognized by the gods themselves. It is because of him that the labyrinth has changed, and because of this, he will reach the very depths and save those who are now in the abyss. Based on this will be an opportunity for Lilith to learn the kind of magic she could not even dream of before. According to the spirit, this would be beneficial for both of them. So he asked what Hen and Lilith thought about it and whether the girl's opinion had changed. The joyful girl replied that after hearing this, she had rethought everything a bit and was now ready to teach Hen magic. Lilith added that it was much more fun to move through the maze in a group than alone. However, she added that she could not teach Hen now because she was here against her will. Lilith said that since the 5th floor was orcs, her floor would be the same as this one, so she would go to the secret room on the 6th floor. Clapping her hands, the girl said goodbye, opened a hole in space and returned to her room on the 6th floor. The spirit kept wondering how she could get to the 5th floor, but when he saw what kind of magic she had, all questions disappeared. Hen didn't feel anything at all, which meant that Lilith could completely hide her presence with the help of magic. Hen asked the spirit why it decided to help him. This question made him angry, and he asked if he could be nice sometimes. Hen was sure that the spirit's attitude toward him had changed after defeating the Lord, but he did not understand why. The spirit said that it simply saw potential in Hen, and that it had something to do with his redemption. Hen asked what kind of redemption that was, but the spirit told him to forget about it and that he would just help him now. The hero sat down to eat, but the spirit told him to hurry up and complete the test. Tae and Jun passed the 1st floor, but they didn't get some skills. No one else passed except them. For finding Lilith as a secret, Hyun was given an engraved scroll as a reward. The reward was good. When he opened the scroll, a message appeared that Hen had activated it and applied it to Rakaratas' sword. Now, Hen's sword could restore 5 points of health for killing an enemy and had a chance to knock back an opponent when attacking. Hen was very happy because it was a complete accident, and with such an accident, he was very lucky. The friends began to go down further, and a message appeared that Hen had to defeat the boss of the 5th floor to move on. Hen went to the shopkeeper. He asked if the hero was passing a rare test, because there was a chaotic noise on the floor. The king asked what Hen was going to buy. The guy replied that he would sell everything first and then buy an expansion pack. By chance, Hen noticed a shining bottle. He couldn't believe it could be here and asked the king to look at it. It was blessing dust. There were rumors that those who used it could receive a blessing. The king said that it was written that she gave it, but no one knew if it was true. The dust cost 500 gold pieces. Some people tried to bathe in it but slipped. Others tried to put it on their weapons, but it just started to shine. Hen asked if the spirit knew anything about it. He said no, because he had never bought it. It was something no one knew about. In the past life, many people were attracted by the promises, so they bought it. But since no one ever got the desired effect, the dust was considered garbage, and so it was until Hen found it. The king emphasized that he bought them at a low price and he had 3 of them. Hen emphasized that he buys absolutely all of them. The king did not understand his decision at all because they were useless and expensive, but it was Hen's decision, so he sold them. Hen said goodbye to the man. Dust is a blessing. Its effect is a momentary control over chance. The spirit asked if the hero was going to tell about it, and the man said that he would see everything himself soon. The boy received a message that Baltazar was waiting for Hen. The hero began to believe that this was a reminder to clear the 5th floor. The spirit emphasized that the gods were ready to reduce their zone of influence for the sake of the boy, as they were giving him their favor. Hen asked if the zone of influence was something important, and the spirit replied that the gods only think about their influence. They will never reduce the zone for the sake of ordinary players. The gods give them only minimal rewards. However, it was different with the hero. The gods gave him all the most useful things. The spirit asked if he now realized how much he was appreciated. The spirit also added that because of this, Hen could be proud of himself and his achievements. It was all very strange for the hero, because he was just completing quests for the interesting rewards the gods gave him. Hen entered the first room of the 5th floor, and an orc fighter immediately appeared in front of him. The hero realized that the boss of the 4th floor appeared here immediately, but it didn't matter at all. Activating a strong punch and successive attacks, Hen rushed into battle, but the orc was able to repel this attack. However, in a few seconds, when the enemy opened up, the guy activated a strong attack again and the orc was defeated. Hen rejoiced. Even though the orc was strong, like a boss, the hero was still able to deal with him very quickly thanks to the scroll he received. Since the enemy in the first room is such a strong monster, it means that the boss of this floor promises to be strong. According to the rules of the maze, the stronger the enemy, the better the reward you get. Hen couldn't wait to fight. After a while, Hen on the 5th floor had already managed to go through 5 rooms. Each one was getting harder and harder. But still, once the hero passes this place, he will not only receive an interesting reward from the god, he will also be able to learn magic. Turning to the spirit, Hen emphasized that he had just thought of this and asked how he knew Lilith. The spirit emphasized that this girl was already in the maze when he first entered it, which is how the limitation of life here works. Like the last time, she was about to die at the hands of an orc on the 4th floor, but the warrior saved her out of pity. Hen could not understand something, so he asked when the spirit first entered the labyrinth, how many years ago it was. The spirit replied that it was about 100 years ago. This meant that in 100 years, the girl had not been able to go beyond the 10th floor and learn strong magic. Even though she came to the labyrinth for this very purpose because of her small talent, she could not get a little enlightenment. The spirit emphasized that he helped her a little bit because everything was very sincere and he was surprised that she was still alive. Those who live not for the sake of completing the labyrinth, but for their own reasons. There were many more NPCs than Hyun had expected. Meanwhile, Tae lured one of the goblins out of the room with a rock, grabbed it, and pierced it with her sword. At the same time, Jun found the altar of Rakiratas, but Hyun insisted that he not even think about touching it. Tae wrote that they were still alive only because they had Hyun's advice and the skills he had taught them. The player Choi Jun appeared in the chat and said that they were ending it because he was very ashamed of what he had read. The bad guy emphasized that they should just go and die and not exaggerate the advice of a player. The other players joined him and sided with him and began to condemn Tai and Jun. The bad guy emphasized that if they were so weak, they shouldn't have chosen loners, as players in other modes are quieter. Meanwhile, Hyun wondered how much time had passed since he got into the maze. It seemed to him that it was a month. Somewhere along the line, players on easy and normal modes are finishing adjusting and should stop dying senselessly. But this freedom of action has become a poison for them, and now they are looking for a way to pour out their emotions that have been accumulating all this time. Instead of enemies in the maze, they began to choose people from the loner mode, who are most often seen in the general chat. However, in her past life, things weren't so bad, and it was because of that guy, just as Hyun thought. Choi said that Hyun was a common fool and talked too much. Of all of them, Hyun was the most annoying. Choi continued to argue, saying that all these skills were just garbage and that Kang Tae-sang just wanted to kill the competition. Hyun saw the whole argument very well. Choi decided to ask the hero why he kept interfering in all this. In his past life, Hyun was restricting that guy, but since he's not there now, Choi created a guild and conquered the entire easy mode. In order to control people, he needed an enemy, which is why he chose people from the loner mode for this role. People from different modes cannot meet, and according to people from the loner mode, it is almost impossible to complete. Choi thinks that the possibility of revenge is zero, but there is something this guy hasn't learned yet. In the end, Kang Tae-sin wrote to the bad guy that they would see each other in a month and left the chat. Hyun emphasized that they had to hurry to the last room and that the spirit should not think about what he had just done. A few minutes later, the team was at the boss's gate. Upon entering, the orc vice chief Latran appeared in front of Hen. Hen emphasized that he was not even a lord. The spirit replied that Hagaha's appearance was more of an anomaly. The vice chief is not weak either. He is quite difficult to defeat, and some of the travelers cannot even put up a decent fight. The joyful spirit shouted out that if Hen was up against Latran, everything would be fine. Latran emphasized that he was grateful to Hen for his fighting spirit. The vice chief had already thought that these fools who call themselves gods are completely useless. But this time, it seems, it turned out differently. Latran asked the boy if he understood correctly that all his comrades, whom he was proud of, had already left all satisfied. Hen shook his head and said that all the orcs he had met had left with a smile, as if they had had a lot of fun dying. He asked if the orcs were more interested in the process of fighting than in killing their opponent. Latran replied that this was exactly the case, because there was no point in the process of killing. They were just slaves being kept here. Forgetting about all the proud battles they took part in, the orcs have no idea when they will be released from here. Pointing to Hen, he asked if they should kill the one who freed them and gave them such a noble death. Latran could not allow this. He had to die a decent death. So Hen had to show true strength and give him death. It was reported that Latran had activated the charge and rage, and now Hen's target is a formidable enemy. But the hero was not at all frightened by what he saw. On the contrary, the actions were exactly what he would have wanted them to be. In a few minutes, the boss was defeated. Latran emphasized that the difference between them was very big. The orc asked who Hen really was, if he was just a traveler passing through the 5th floor. The hero had no real knowledge of swordsmanship, but he could already use air weapon mastery. This was already amazing, and the boss hadn't yet taken note of his movements, as if they were based on Han's experience. But despite all this, it was a truly glorious battle, and for Latran, it was a truly dignified death that he had been waiting for. The orc's last words were that the hero must go on and achieve his majestic victory over this maze. A message appeared that Hen had killed the boss of the 5th floor. Thus fulfilling the task of the god Baltazar, he was satisfied. The boss's zone of influence decreased, and as a reward, Hen received a belt of fighting spirit, which restored 5 health and mana for each victory. He also received the skill Proof of Victory. The boy had to choose one characteristic that would constantly increase. This meant that for every victory, one of the characteristics would increase. Hen, of course, chose mana. Rakiratas offered the apostle's contract again, and Hen refused. Baltazar was pleased and was looking forward to the meeting. Hen emphasized to the spirit that the gods did indeed offer him very good rewards for his accomplishments. 2 chests appeared. The spirit emphasized that one should contain the usual reward and the other from the secret room. From the base chest on the 5th floor, Hen got a shining decorated sword that added 5 to his attack, just like Rakirata's sword. From the secret one, the hero got a knife of self-sacrifice. The guy could accumulate and store health in it. By hitting himself in the arm, the sword gained 20 out of 500 health. It was something like a potion, useful in an emergency. As a reward for his covert research, Hen received a dark vault cloak which kept him hidden for a second. The guy threw the cloak over himself and instantly disappeared. He asked the spirit how he found such an interesting find. The spirit asked if no one would find the guy without revealing it, and the hero replied that the cloak would be very useful in battles. The spirit emphasized that Hen had changed the type of weapon and would now carry 2 swords at once, which reminded the spirit of his sword art. It was an art that the spirit had invented himself based on his mastery of the covert sword. Hen asked him to teach it to him. The spirit emphasized that with such characteristics, the boy could die if he used it now. The hero should consider this a high-level skill, but if it's Hen, then maybe everything will be fine. For now, Hen has to become even stronger and prove his strength to the spirit, after which he will leave everything he has to the guy. Hen went down to the 6th floor, and for defeating the boss of this floor, the hero must receive an engraved scroll. Everything happened exactly as Tae said it would, because she said that there would be a swamp that would be difficult to walk through. She also said that the swamp doesn't affect the monsters, it only slows down the players who decide to enter it. Monsters from above began to rush at Heng. Although he was standing deep in the water, thanks to the Staff of Fire, it was not a problem for him. After killing some monsters, a message appeared that the swamp was no longer in the way of victory. The detection skill increased to 4%. Also, Hen killed one of the monsters with his bare hands, and his mana increased by 1 unit for this kill. The spirit emphasized that the skill was completely meaningless, but he was more interested in how Hen knew that the swamp was also an enemy. There was only one enemy behind Hen, and when he asked why he was standing there alone, the hero quickly dealt with him. The spirit was very bored. Heng emphasized that given all the trials, ordinary monsters are not enemies to him at all. They saw a brick on display in front of them. The spirit emphasized that it was Lilith who left the clue. The monsters would not have understood anything anyway. Clicking on it, a staircase appeared that led to the top of the tower, from which the girl's voice was already heard. Lily looked out and said hello. A message appeared that Hen had met the poor girl again, who was waiting for magic. When they went upstairs, they saw the girl sitting in a serious pose. She emphasized that she was posing like a real magician, something she had never done before. The girl emphasized that they would start from the beginning with the usual explanations, such as what magic is. Unlike skills, magic can't just be learned. It can either be learned from others or earned. That is why things that cannot be done with skills are possible with magic, and its value is incredibly high. Lilith also added that since she is in the role of a teacher, it is imperative that Hen addresses her with respect. Since Hen could learn magic just by addressing her politely, he emphasized that he could and called the girl a master. Lilith went on to say that magic in general is a real mystery. Making a flame in her hand, she asked what Hen saw there. The guy there saw the shape of a flame, just like all the other people who didn't know magic and came from a world where it doesn't exist at all. And in order to learn magic, you need to sign a contract with the god of magic. In Lilith's case, he came to her once. The spirit emphasized that there were no cases of gods coming to teach themselves, except for Lilith, because her thirst for magic was extremely great. Since Hen had already refused several of the apostles' contracts, he did not want to sign a new one. He asked if he also needed to seek God. Lily said no, because he had her. The girl approached the guy and started doing something. It was reported that Lilith had poured magic into Hen. The girl emphasized that everything is simple. Those who possess magic can easily pass it on to others. This is the advantage of the labyrinth. There were reports that now Hen can only make sparks. The guy received a magical gift and extracted magic. Showing Hen the same flame, Lilith asked him what it looked like now. And it looked completely different. The boy felt something he had never felt in his past life, and that's what magic really is. Lilith emphasized that the preparation was finally over and now they could officially begin. She added that she would teach Hen various ways to learn magic. The easiest way is to extract magic from a magic object, which can be a tool or a staff. Luckily for Hen, he had a couple of them, so he wasted no time in drawing magic from them. After that, the staffs turned gray and a message appeared saying that the guy had gained the fireball skill and a random psychic attack. With a little concentration, Heng was able to activate the fireball and Lily began to praise him, saying that the hero did a great job. Lily continued, "The second way is to learn from someone who has magic or to pay tribute to a god. However, there is one caveat. The second method is possible if the player takes contracts, so it was not suitable for the hero. So, instead of Hen, Lilith will pay tribute to the god to get the skill and then teach it to the boy." Hen agreed, so he just needed to give Lilith the materials for the tribute he would receive on this floor. Hen decided to ask Lily if he could learn the spells that the girl already knew, such as invisibility. Lily replied that it was also possible, but they would also cost something. Hen was not very impressed with what he heard. She didn't learn the other spells herself, but received them, so she had to give gifts to the gods and ask for their permission to do so. The boy asked what he needed to bring 2 offerings to learn. 1, for the girl to study, 2, for her to give to Hen. The girl said yes and emphasized that Hen could use weapons or armor as an offering. It had to be something valuable. Hen started to take out a bunch of weapons. However, Lilith emphasized that it might work, but even for 1 spell, it's not enough. The girl said that it was magic, so the usual amount would not be enough. They needed jewelry. Hen pointed to his necklace. Lilith was stunned, because it was a lord's necklace. She thought that with its help, she could learn the initial spell. Hen also asked about his Rakirata's sword. Lilith emphasized that it would be enough, but it would be a beginner's spell. Hen emphasized that if it was for Rakaratas, the god would like it. This was the first time she had heard such a response about gods. Finally, Hen took out a worn wooden staff and asked Lilith how she liked this tribute. The girl emphasized that it was more than enough, and that Hen could easily ask for spells for a beginner. The fact is that the concept of things plays a very important role. The gods love things that are directly related to them. Lilith asked what kind of spell Hen wanted to learn. Invisibility was not a good choice for him because it was a high-level spell. The boy could choose either a freezing arrow or a basic search, which closes the veil and helps to be less visible. And the last is the creation of provisions. This magic helps players create water and porridge, but it won't be good for cooking. Hen chose to create provisions, which surprised the girl, because she thought that the hero would want to choose a freezing arrow. Hen replied that since he was not limited in time, he could come back here at any time, and that porridge was better than goblin meat. The girl began to say words in an incomprehensible language. A message appeared that Hen felt a heavy look on his face, and a few minutes later, a new message said that Hen had received a provision that cost 5 mana. Lilith was very surprised that the god gave his consent so easily. She thought that she would have to go through some difficulties. Gods usually fuss when it comes to their chosen people. The spirit, in his time, also went through some difficulties. However, this was a little different from the case of a warrior, because the number of gods who hated Hen could be counted on one hand. Lily asked if there was anything else Hen wanted to learn. He replied that he did, but he had nothing more to offer. The girl replied that she would keep an eye on Hen. They said goodbye and the hero left. The boy, using fire, killed monsters very quickly. It became much more comfortable than before. The spirit emphasized that everything was quite easy. Hen walks around the floors, and if he finds something good, he returns to Lilith. Meanwhile, Hen was checking the maximum health of his shield, which had increased a lot. Now it was 35. As soon as the spirit started to say that he was very bored and they should move on, Hen started to undress. This made him very angry. He tried to find out what the hero was going to do now. Hen, with a serious face, said that he had to get something before he could go on. The spirit asked if it was necessary to undress like that to learn the skill. Hen emphasized that it was. One of the monsters was standing near the tree, and as soon as he saw the prey, which was also unprotected, he immediately rushed over. For taking on an attack that was supposed to do 50 damage but only 20, Hen received the skill Strength. The guy's health does not decrease from the first attack, and in addition to the past, Hen also received full first attack nullification. When the guy is attacked when he is completely defenseless, Hen will not receive damage that will reduce his health. But for this, you need to perform this amazing action. Hen should be grateful to Rakiratos for this shield and skill. When the hero asked him how he felt about his new skill, he replied that it was insanely useful for the maze. Complete nullification of the first attack is a skill that reduces the attack to 0. The skill is 100% true to its name. No matter what skill the enemy uses, it will still be lost. And it's not that the attack will be blocked. It's as if it's made as if the attack never existed at all. Regardless of who the opponent is, whether it's a monster or another player, they still won't have time to react to it. The spirit asked if Hen hadn't had the shield, he wouldn't have gotten the skill. The hero emphasized that it would simply be much harder to do. In his past life, Hen went through a lot of trials, and only after thousands of attempts was he able to get it. Hen was also glad that the shield does not count against his basic health, so he can get more useful skills. The spirit replied that he now understood why Hen wanted this skill and asked if they would continue walking through the maze. But Hen said no because he only had the first attack nullified. The spirit asked if he could nullify subsequent attacks. He asked if it was possible because before that, Hen had received 20 points of damage. The shield could withstand 35, and 2 attacks could not be blocked. If the hero is attacked twice, his unbreakable shield will break and he will take damage to his basic health. But Hyun had an answer to this question as well. With the words that all is well with him, the hero showed the spirit the dust of blessing. Hen began to sprinkle himself with this dust while the spirit said that it was just ordinary garbage that was presented in a very beautiful wrapper. When he was done, Hen went into the room with the monsters. The spirit asked if the dust would solve all the issues with the volume of his shield. The monster made an attack. The spirit emphasized that it was not an attack. but that the skill needed to withstand several more of them. After that, the monster attacked again and knocked 17 points off the shield. The spirit could not understand what had just happened. The attack involves a large number of checks: accuracy, evasion, defense, and finally luck. According to the system, the incoming damage has a random range of 10%. If the attack has 30 points, its range is 27 to 33, depending on luck. The monster made another attack, after which the shield was knocked out. Dust has a probability control effect. If Hen uses all 3 vials of dust at once, the hero will take minimal damage for a minute. Since Hen's health did not decrease from the second attack, he gained the trigger skill, Complete Nullification of the Second Attack. After gaining the skill, the hero quickly killed the monster. The spirit was stunned at what Hen was doing for the sake of skills. Hen wanted to get another skill, strike at a vital point, for attacking the monster in its weak points. This skill takes a lot of time to learn, but due to the constant trials in the past, Hen did not have it. The spirit emphasized that this is a very important skill for passing the maze, because the damage can increase 3 times. The 6th floor was gradually coming to an end, but before going to the boss, Hen activated the production of provisions. A few minutes later, he was holding a plate of porridge. It tasted like ordinary porridge. Hen asked the spirit about his mental attacks. The hero was wondering if he would use them again, if they would wear out. The spirit emphasized that yes, but not with the result that Hen expects. The next attack will be after the first one is completed. When they were at Lilith's, Hen asked if magic was considered a skill in this labyrinth. The girl, after some thought, emphasized that it was something else, but Hen was close to the truth. The hero began to try magic, but he imagined a sharper form, but it did not change at all. The spirit said that what the guy was trying to do was high-level magic. If it were that easy, it would not have a rank. Hen was trying to invent something with fire. He didn't believe that if he did the same thing with skills, he wouldn't invent new magic. The spirit was a little tired, but Hen continued to experiment. Until he gave the order, the fire would be right there in his hands. After throwing the fire, Hen abruptly realized that the power when it is in his hands and flying is very different. He decided to try something and drank the Mana Restoration Potion. After that, he threw a fireball. The hero started running. When he got ahead of the ball, he created another one. This meant that they were combining. Hen did this a few more times and sent it into the wall. After that, a message appeared that he had learned a fire volley. After that, the hero entered the room with the boss. A message appeared saying that there was a man-eating fighter. Hen activated the fire blast, and in order to prevent the enemy from repelling it, he used psychic attacks, which worked well. After casting another fire blast, the lizard took 50 and 49 points of damage and was set on fire. No matter what the monster tried to do under psychic attack and continuous attacks, it still didn't work. The battle ended very quickly. The monster's corpse was lying in the middle of the room, and a message appeared that Hen had won. Before that, Hen had only used magic as a support, but now, with its help, the hero can go further. As a basic reward, the guy received an engraved scroll, and as a secret reward, a staff of the Ice Heart. Hen knocked the fighter's necklace out of the boss. The hero wondered if he would have enough to learn the spell. Hen decided to return to Lilith to check it out. The spirit was disappointed because he thought they would go further. When he came back to the girl, she said he could try it. A few minutes later, Hen had an ice arrow. Hen could not have imagined that such small, safe places would appear after clearing the floor. He thought it was just a room. Lilith laughed and said that she was a real master at finding safe spaces. The spirit turned to Han and asked if he was thinking the same thing, and added that with the sentence it would be possible. Hen emphasized that he thought so. However, Lilith did not understand what the guys were talking about, so she asked them about it. When the team went outside, Hen showed Lilith what he had learned while working with fireballs. The spirit asked if the girl liked what the lone hero had found. The girl was very shocked. Lilith ran over and asked how Han could learn such a high-level spell. He asked if it was hard. The girl began to shout that the difference in ranks was very large. Spells for beginners only imitate real magic. Lilith started crying and asked how Hen did it. The hero emphasized that he could teach her because it was not forbidden. The girl began to thank him. A couple of seconds later, Lily was lying on the ground, wondering how Hen had come to do it. Lilith was not capable of learning such a spell at all, because according to her, magicians do not do physical training. However, she thanked Hen anyway, because she did not know that there was such a difference in systemic judgment. The two friends said goodbye, and Lilith emphasized that Hen should not forget to bring her valuable things for the next spells. At this point, Hen was already level 18. He had 161 strength, 79 intelligence, 122 dexterity, 24 attacks, and 21 defenses. When Hen saw this, he was very happy, because most of his characteristics were already higher than in his previous life. The spirit emphasized that their time together was coming to an end, and now it would most likely become impossible. Heng turned to the spirit and asked if he would finally teach him his swordsmanship. What the spirit would teach Hen was the art of swordplay in his empire. Karwut's empire is a country where strength and power are gained. Therefore, his empire considers the weak to be useless. They believe that the weak are the best prey for strong warriors. The imperial family is no different. The spirit stuck swords into the necks of those who were of the same blood as him and fought for the throne. Previously, the warrior had 6 brothers, but only he survived. Everyone in the labyrinth wondered how the spirit could survive in a world full of ambitious and strong people. And yet, it was his one and only world. Now, even if he dreams of returning, it is not possible. Even if he wants to save that world, he doesn't have a chance. So he wants to leave at least some memory of it. This will be his redemption. After a few minutes, the team found a room that was perfect. Since this is an art from a special age, its specialization is in the power, and for them, defense simply did not exist. The best defense is offense. They used a special method of attacking where the enemy's sword should be. Hen emphasized that there are attacks that cannot be blocked. The spirit replied that the attacking power was much stronger. He guaranteed it. After that, the spirit asked what Hen was going to do now. He replied that he had no reason to refuse. The spirit touched Hen, and now the hero saw a warrior. He said that the cutting sword was the only memory of his world. A message appeared that Hen had received the high-ranked skill Sword of Cutting Thunderstorm from its owner. The spirit emphasized that now the hero must go and try it. When he opened his stats, he saw that he had 0% skill. The spirit emphasized that the skill should have been 100%. But since he was dead, he was only allowed to transfer the skill. The spirit continued to say that no matter what, it would go a little further, so Han should listen to it carefully. It's not just about blocking attacks, but more about reacting to them. By adhering to this concept, Hen will succeed. When the hero wants to attack the enemy in the chest, he has to bend his arms and move to the left, then use the flexibility of his body. Hen tried to do everything the spirit said, but he had no idea what he was telling him. The spirit emphasized that it was not easy to explain the principle of the skill in words, and he did not know how to get out of this situation. It's not that Hen doesn't have talent, it's just that usually one player shows the other a trick, and that's how it works. Hen emphasized that skill is also a certain form of experience, as it has to be gained through independent training. For the battle with the Lord, Hen received a 5% skill increase potion that he hadn't used yet. He started drinking it. The spirit asked if it would definitely work. After a few minutes, the skill increased. Abruptly, Hen picked up his sword and began to demonstrate the techniques. The spirit was stunned because he saw himself in his movements. Hen turned to the warrior and emphasized that everything worked. The spirit could not even imagine that it was possible. Hen returned to the king and bought a rusty sword. The man had no idea what he needed it for, but it was the hero's decision. Skill needs to be increased in real battles, and to make these battles longer, Hen bought that bad sword. When the monster began to attack, images appeared in front of Hen. He could see all the ways to respond to the attack. In a few minutes, the hero defeated the lizard, and a message appeared saying that his skill mastery had increased by 1%. The spirit emphasized that this was very good, but the hero could move a little better if he moved his wrist by 3 centimeters. This fight would have taken much longer, but with the help of Hen's skill, the hero could have flown over this floor. It was important to move on, but to take steps back in time, and when Hen retreated to the left, he had to put his foot more forward. Sometimes the hero stepped back too much. His retreating steps should be used for attacking. When he and the monster crossed swords, Hen had to push even harder. He had to do it with all his weight. After a day of training, the hero was exhausted and went to bed. This was a bit unexpected, but the spirit considered Hen to be unusual. Hen spends 12 hours in battle, 6 hours practicing his art, and rests only during sleep. Heng always says that it is better to be tired than to repeat that suffocating and unknown future, so he would rather try now. It's been 4 days since Hen learned the art of the thunderstorm-cutting sword. Now he has much better control. He could react properly to the attacks of his enemies. But there was something wrong, something missing. Instead of going deep into his thoughts, he should practice more. Seeing the monster, the hero closed his eyes. Step by step, he had to move forward. He had to follow the path of the sword, a reaction that was based on his personal premonition. Hen had to rely on him 100%. Maintaining an animal stance, the guy had to keep moving forward, not a step to the side or back. The hero rushed straight at the lizard, and in a few minutes it was dead. For this, Hen increased his skill by 3%. The spirit flew up to Hen and emphasized that this was the first sword of the lightning-slashing sword art, the Wolf Fang. The spirit added that there were many more similar swords, but with such enemies, Hen would not be able to learn them. Even on the 10th floor, it would be difficult to learn it. But the spirit was very happy with how well Hyun had done. Meanwhile, Tae sat and ate the meat. It was so unpalatable to her that she wanted to throw it all up. She still didn't dare to eat the meat of human-type monsters, and the rations were too expensive for her. Tae would like to taste pizza or corn again. Anything would be much better than this disgusting meat. The girl missed the land. Suddenly, messages began to appear. A special mission had begun. A return to Earth. Everyone would return on Sunday. Tae went to the general chat, and everyone was already actively discussing this quest. Some were very happy to be back. The players hoped that this quest was not a hoax, because for some of them, the maze was very difficult. But Jun wasn't happy at all, and he decided to find out that not everything was as good as it seemed in this return. Those players started to attack Jun, shouting and asking him how he could not find this event very happy. Jun began to say that the reason they were all here was because strange monsters had taken over the land. After realizing this, the joy on the faces of many players abruptly changed to a very strong sadness. Hen read the chat where everyone was complaining, and he also checked how much mana it costs and what the ice arrow magic does. The spirit asked why the hero was watching the chat while he was doing magic. The boy replied that they would all be returning to Earth soon. The spirit asked if this is the place that broken people protect. Hen said no and threw an arrow at the wall. He emphasized that Doug will understand when the time comes. But now he has to start going through the maze as soon as possible. In a few minutes, the hero found and cleared a secret room, where he received a rune of agility that increased his dexterity by 10. Also, less than an hour later, the 7th floor boss was defeated, for which Hen received shabby earrings. They added 10 to his mana. As a secret reward, he received a clean leather armor that added 8 to his defense. After receiving the rewards from the floor, Hen returned to Lilith, from whom he decided to learn basic detection, which cost 2 mana. As Hen was leaving, Lilith asked when the hero wanted to learn new spells, and he replied that he would learn all the girls' spells. When the team was going downstairs, the spirit emphasized that Hen was following the chat very often and added that it was called an addiction. The hero replied that he just hadn't seen a bad guy in a long time who was always arguing with others. Hen was sure that the guy was going to go crazy, because he hadn't expected such a task in the future. Hen was already looking forward to the next Sunday so that he could return to the ground as well. As soon as he got to the floor, a very large bird immediately attacked him. The guy killed it with one blow, and he emphasized that monsters here act according to instinct, so it is very easy to catch them. The hero turned to the spirit and said that he could never have thought that the art of the sword would help against animal monsters. Saying that this place is a great place to learn something new, Hen started to throw his magic around. After walking a little further, he saw a strange place, and a message appeared saying that he had found the altar of Oman. The spirit emphasized that this is the god of trials. He is just testing travelers and enjoys when they discover something new in themselves. The message came that Oman wanted to test the traveler who approached his altar. Since Hen had no intention of refusing, an additional quest began, and Oman began to prepare the test. In an instant, a huge wall of water appeared around the friends. A strange liquid poured out of the altar and turned into a monster. Hen realized that he had to keep his distance and keep the information, but the hero did not know why the enemy was so slow. The guy just walked up and cut off his head. The test was over and his agility increased by 1. Immediately after that, another monster appeared. Hen did not understand whether they would continue to appear endlessly. The monster attacked Hen. It was a little faster than the last one, but it was still very slow. Hen began to realize that this was an increasing test. For this monster, the hero received +1 to his strength. The spirit emphasized that Hen was right. There was just a trial for players on the first or second floor with average strength. Thanks to this test, Hen will be able to find out which floor is currently suitable for his skill level and characteristics. Hen killed a few more monsters with ease. However, now enemies began to appear that used skills against the hero. But this monster was no problem for the guy either, and with the help of an arrow, Hen defeated it and got +2 to his mana. After checking his stats, the hero realized that his mana was restored after each test. There were no limits. Thanks to this test, Hen will be able to test many things that he has learned but has not yet used in real combat. The guy activated the confusion, because from now on, enemies should start appearing that would be on top of him. But using an ice arrow, he quickly killed the enemy. It was very easy, and Hen was looking forward to further developments. But after that, the walls disappeared and no new monsters appeared. Hen turned to the spirit and asked what happened, why nothing was happening. The spirit started laughing and said that the level of Oman's challenges is no higher than the floor the player is on. If Hen wanted to continue, he would have to pay a price, and he was not ready to reduce his sphere of influence. Hen was unique, and besides, there was a gap between the gods now. They were under a lot of pressure. And that's why Oman just wants to see Hen's potential and find out if the boy is worth his attention at all. After some thought, Hen said that this would take too much time and he didn't have any left, so he'd rather go through the maze. As soon as Hen said that, a message appeared that Oman had reduced the zone and was offering the boy a tougher test. Omin had mixed feelings. Hen had to prove his strength to him again. It all made him very happy. Hen was looking forward to the battle, because now he could see the warriors from the floors he hadn't been able to reach in the maze. After killing the first enemy, the hero increased his strength by 4, and during the battle, his spiritual growth was activated. Turning to the spirit, Hen emphasized that everything that was happening now was very good, but what kind of a joke was this? The spirit replied that it didn't look like they were targeting any particular person, but that each enemy had a story to tell. These were all those who were tested and lost. Those who were able to make a pact, those who sold their souls. All of these enemies are more than just shadows of dead warriors who are lost in the endless history of the maze. On the next enemy, Hen decided to test all his magical skills. After killing him, he got 5 to his power. Hen emphasized that he will remember the fact that all these shadows are unique creatures with unique movements and fighting styles. Hen had already been on the shadow since the 13th floor, and each of the shadows was beginning to show its own unique skills that were not repeated. The 14th shadow was much easier to kill than the previous one, because it relied too much on Hen's skills. Starting with the shadow from the 15th floor, their stats were about the same, or even slightly higher. However, by activating all his magic, Hung killed this shadow as well. The number of tricks up his sleeves was much greater. Seeing the reward, Hen realized that they give spiritual power and also increase characteristics. It's real crazy. If we make a quick assessment of all this, we could say that Hen had already gained about 60 character points. The spirit emphasized that this was all possible thanks to the boy. He was curious how much stronger he would become after the test. The shadow from the 18th floor wanted to use mutual destruction, but Hen activated the first strike nullification. The spirit emphasized that this skill was unfair, because the opponents could not even imagine that the boy had something like this. The shadow of the 19th floor appeared, and with it came a message that Heng was facing an impossible opponent. Since Hung had already passed dozens of dangerous tests, he had a lot of reinforcements against such opponents. The shadow activated the storm, a skill that will make the body spin, but the shadow has a weakness at this time: an open back. The guy activated the run and the strong punch, and with these improvements, it will be very easy for him to defeat the shadow. The shadow of the 20th floor activated the skill Absolute Victory, and Hen passed the test and won the challenge with his perseverance. The enemy rushed in and managed to make his attack, which Hen avoided with their repel's skill and activated Madness. In response, the shadow activated its retaliatory strike skill, which sent Hen flying several meters away. This is a counter skill that pushes the enemy away at a distance proportional to the characteristics, and Hen got it quite late. After activating acceleration and a strong punch, Hen rushed to the shadow, received 210 damage from it, and activated the cloak. With the help of the cloak's invisibility, the hero was able to go behind the enemy's back and kill him, and the 20th test was passed. For this, Hen increased his strength by 20, his agility by 13, his intelligence by 10, his mana by 14, and his spiritual growth was activated. A strange figure of a girl appeared in front of Hen, who gradually began to crawl out of the puddle, and Hen was scared. He decided to finish the test. There was a report that Omen was thoughtfully silent about the results. Heng decided to check his performance, which was simply amazing. He could not believe that this could be achieved. A message appeared that Oman had reduced the zone and was giving out a reward. The spirit emphasized that his power had indeed decreased. As a reward, the guy received a testimony ring and the passive skill Proof of Limitation. All of the hero's characteristics will increase if he fights a higher-level enemy. Oman offered a contract, and the guy refused. For refusing, the god splashed water in Hen's face and a message appeared that he was waiting for the next meeting. Now Hen realized that his limit was the 20th floor. This was really very useful information, and Hen wanted to tell about the ordeal in the chat. Continuing to clear the floor in a secret room in a chest, the hero found a tread on the ankle. In a few minutes, the boss of the 8th floor, Markand Rutai, was defeated. It became much easier for Hen to pass the tests. The spirit emphasized that usually people become stronger in more adequate ways, but Heng's skills make him incredible. As a regular reward of the 8th floor, the hero received the Marni rune. Hen realized that it was better to keep it for the future. As a secret reward, Hen received a passive skill that took a percentage of the enemy's stamina when they attacked. The spirit emphasized that they had now gathered everything they could on the floor and asked if they should speed up now. Meanwhile, with 4 days to go before returning to Earth, Hen was on the 9th floor, where the monsters were goblins again. Hen could still easily deal with them, but he never thought they could be stronger than the lizards. The spirit answered that the goblins were constantly training, taught by a leader, and Hen had to guess who that leader was. The one Hen had fought before was the goblins' past leader, and the current leader was supposed to be the boss on this floor. There were only 3 days left before returning to Earth, and Hen came to the boss's room. He was Hobgoblin, an old man. As soon as he began to cast magic, Hen activated his cloak of secrecy and disappeared right in front of his boss. Once he was behind him, Hyun quickly killed him and, activating the trap-searching skill, searched the room. After searching for a while, they came to the room of the Goblin Lord Luthor. He asked if it was Hyun who killed Hagahua. Hyun nodded his head, and then the Lord added that he had fought against a warrior, so he had to die completely satisfied. The Lord was silent for a while and smiled, adding that he wanted to thank Hyun for that, instead of the past Lord. Hyun turned to the goblin and asked him if he was the one who had removed Hagehua from his position, why he was doing it now. The goblin replied that he was going to be killed anyway. Shouldn't he leave at least something in memory of himself? Couldn't he see that dying as a goblin lord was much better than just being one of them? Hen began to think that the Lord had just done it all because of his greed and nothing else. The Lord added that he knew this day would come one day, but he still felt a little strange. But he just had to accept it. The Lord looked directly into Han's eyes and said that they had to fight, and he attacked. He said that he could not keep up with the hero's skills, quick movements, and sword skills. Hen asked him if he was going to give up, and the Lord shouted that he would never do that in his life. He didn't care that he had no chance of winning. He would do his best to have a good time for the rest of his life. With the words that this was very good and that Hen would also try his best, the guy rushed to the attack. In the end, the Lord was defeated. He could not believe that the hero would be so strong, but the Lord was still satisfied. Luthra's last words were that Hen should move on and not even think about stopping. Hen received the title of Killer of Kings. During battles with lords, kings, or elders, his rewards would be increased. With the rewards he received, Hen returned to Lilith, from whom he learned the cover that hid his presence. Hen also went to see the king. The man did not believe that the hero had spent half his luck. He wondered why he needed so many potions. So the guy passed the 9th floor, receiving boots of increased speed and a shining sword of frost. Finally, the team reached the 10th floor. The spirit emphasized that it would soon be over and asked if Hen remembered the quest. The boy replied that he did, and added that the spirit wanted him to avenge him and kill the 10th floor boss. The spirit also thanked the boy for the fact that with Hen's help, he was still able to leave a trace of his existence in this world. The spirit's world had died, and he had died with it, so it was all over for him. But he had to leave some kind of memory. The spirit was sorry that he could not weave his art himself, but he was sure that the hero would cope with it one day. He also emphasized that he was saying goodbye to the hero just in case, and that he had a lot of fun spending time with him. Hen replied that he would hold his answer for a while, because he was still not 100% sure about the future. Entering one of the rooms, an ogre appeared, a monster of the 10th floor. Hen grabbed his finger, threw it, and killed it. After walking a bit along the floor, Hen found a secret room and increased his trap detection skill by 2%. Hen could have just destroyed the trap and decided to raise the skill level. The spirit was curious why Hen did this. After activating the trap search again, Hen found a blue ring as a reward. It increased mana by 10. And now, finally, Hen stood outside the boss's room. The spirit said that by killing the boss and entering the hidden room, the hero would find his killer. If the boy could deal with that bad guy, he would finally be able to complete the quest that the warrior spirit had given him. Before entering, Hen used the scroll and rune on his new sword. Now he had some chance to slow down the enemy. The hero asked if the spirit was considered a creation of the labyrinth. He replied that technically it was, because he was bound to his grave. He could only be in this place because of the hero, but his roots did not change at all. The guy emphasized that this was exactly what he was talking about, but because of the quest, the spirit was now tied to Hen. That's why until the quest is finished, it will continue to follow Hyon. The guy asked what they would prioritize: the spirit, which is tied to Hen because of the quest, or the boy, who is tied to this labyrinth. The spirit did not understand the boy's words. Immediately after that, a portal to the ground opened and a message appeared saying that a special quest was about to begin and the players should get ready. The process of transferring from the labyrinth to the ground began smoothly, and the spirit asked Hen what was happening now. In a second, Hen was on Earth. The smell of grass here was different from the one in the labyrinth, and there was also a strong smell of asphalt. Everything was just like it was on the first day. Now the hero was 100% sure that he was back on Earth. The spirit was still with Hen. He was screaming and asking where she was now because he had never heard of this place. The team went into one of the shops. The smell was not very good. 3 months had passed. Everything must have gone bad. Hen realized that they had to take canned food. When he found some, he put them on his sword, activated fire magic, and roasted them. The spirit was stunned by the boy's actions. And Hen finally tasted the earth food he had missed so much. Everything created in the labyrinth belongs to him, but he can take something with him. The player's ownership remains a priority. Hen was not entirely sure that he would be able to take the spirit away from him, because it is not an object, but a living creature. The spirit asked Hen what cars were, what multi-story buildings were, because in his world there had never been such things. Hen told him everything, but it was not as interesting as the strange rift in the sky, and the hero asked the spirit what it was. The reason why Hen entered the maze and the very thing that destroyed his world was still in the same place. The spirit replied that he felt a completely different force. He believed that if he got closer to that place, he would be able to figure it out. As soon as the spirit said this, a strange creature rushed at Hen. Hen caught it and asked the spirit what it was. When he looked at it, he said that it looked like a servant of God, but the energy from it was completely different. Most likely, it had come from another space, but the spirit did not know who had created it. But the spirit could say for sure that the one who created it was incredibly strong, perhaps stronger than Rakiratas. The boy said he understood and used the magic of fire to burn the monster. The spirit asked if Hen had brought him here to ask him about such things, but he didn't mind, because he could see the other world. A message appeared that according to the terms of the quest, Hen had to get to the city hall of Anyang alive. It was completely empty. Hung could not imagine how many people might have stayed on Earth, hoping to hide and wait for rescue. The spirit asked why Hen was walking so slowly. The hero raised his head and said that he wanted to meet someone else here. The spirit asked if he was talking about the 2 players from the chat room. Hen replied that no, but that they would meet them very soon. After walking down the street for a while, the hero heard a voice asking him if the guy had also received a quest to get to the city hall. The guy emphasized that it was the first time he had seen the guy, so he was not from the hard regime. He asked if Hyun was from the normal one. This guy turned out to be Geum, and he added that he had gathered a group of others during the quest and invited Hyun to join them. Hyun tried to put on as emotionless a face as possible, but Geum emphasized that he would just go with him. After walking for a while, Hen and Jim came to a group of players, and Gim asked how they were doing and if anyone else was joining. One of the players was very happy to see him, tearfully telling him that luckily nothing had happened to them. The GM introduced Hyun and emphasized that he was from the normal regime. The other players began to discuss that they hadn't seen him there. Heng realized that there were about 100 players from easy and normal modes. The spirit said that they didn't seem to see him. Looking at all the players, as Hyun had expected, he couldn't remember any of them at all. He said that since everyone was here, they should go to the city hall. The other players were scared. They were afraid of meeting monsters. The travelers started to tell Jim, but he smiled and said that they shouldn't worry, he would protect them. The players began to say that they were very happy to have met such a traveler, as expected from the hard mode. Gim is very strong. The spirit was also watching, but he didn't really understand why these players from the maze were so weak. Out of all of them, only Gim looked at least capable of something, but also only to a certain extent. The spirit doubted very much that the boy was capable of going down to the lower floors of the maze. The spirit also could not understand why Hen wanted to meet him, and he himself had joined this group of fools. It was reported that a monster had appeared in front of the team, and all the players were terrified when they saw it. But Gim, who was the bravest of them all, bravely stepped forward and said that he would be back soon. It was an F-class monster, even those weaklings could have handled it, but that's all if you look at the standards of the maze. But in reality, only someone who had completed the maze on the hard level could defeat even such easy monsters. After a few minutes, the battle was over and Him was able to defeat the monster, and the group decided to move on through the streets. Such situations continued to happen, with Gim dealing with all the monsters and the rest of the group hiding for their safety. However, a situation could arise when another monster appeared during the battle, and then Hyun would take over. Other players could not quite understand where the monster went at such moments, because they did not receive any damage from it. Gum asked where the second monster went, and the players answered that no one killed it, it just took off and disappeared. Jim didn't understand what was happening. How could the monster just disappear when he was the only one in the hard mode? After that, Guillaume realized that it was Hyun's fault. Most people get scared when they see a monster a few hundred meters away. But this guy always remains so calm, as if he knows in advance what is about to happen. But Him tried not to think about it too much, so as not to waste time. He gave the order to keep going to the mayor's office. While Gim continued to protect the players, Hyun secretly tried to get rid of the other monsters. This is how the journey continued. The spirit could not understand what Hyun and Gim were doing at all. Even if they are weak, there's nothing to stop them from joining forces, but they just keep running away from the battlefield. You can turn a blind eye to the battles where their lives are on the line, but they don't show even a small desire to do anything. The spirit was very angry that such creatures were trapped in the labyrinth. It was a humiliation for all the creatures living there. Looking at the spirit, it was the first time Hen had seen it so angry. The hero was glad that the other players could not see it. No one can be born strong. They all continued to risk their lives in order to become stronger. His spirit was very depressed. He didn't understand how such weak players could survive to this point. Hen emphasized that the spirit should not be angry, because unlike him, these people had chosen an easy level to pass. The spirit was surprised by what he heard. He asked what Hen was talking about, because there is no easy maze, there is only one. Hen understood that there are 4 types of difficulty, each with a different configuration of monsters and bosses on each floor. The spirit emphasized that the labyrinth he knows is not divided in any way. Sometimes the dimensions are broken by the gods, but then everything returns to the way it was. Someone created them artificially. Some creature that did not know how the labyrinth was built just copied it. Considering the scale, it was very difficult to do, and why they even took on such a hard job. Perhaps whoever created it was on a level with the gods, or even higher than them. All the monsters were Class F. If this creature wanted to kill everyone, he should have provided monsters of a slightly higher class. But he controlled everything. They say that the gods love it when mortals make very hard efforts during battles. The spirit asked if they could go to the city hall themselves, and Hen said no, because there would be nothing for them to do there, even if they were the first to arrive. The spirit asked why the boy could not help them without hiding, because he likes to help other people. Hen emphasized that he only helped those who had potential, and he was helping him because he would go with him to the end. He doesn't care what happens to the other players, but if they die, he will go crazy. In his past life, Gim also led people, but when he reached the city hall, he was left all alone. Some players were sitting in the building and eating monster meat, which was not very tasty for them. They began to argue that it would be better to go to the store, and Hen ate canned food in the meantime. The players also saw what Hen was eating, and they started talking about making a trade with him. One man came up to Hen and asked him why he wouldn't share and emphasized that he should know him because he was on the normal program. The players immediately recognized him. It was the leader of the Athens Guild, Lee Chang-seok. He emphasized that if Hyun didn't want to die when he returned to the maze, it would be better to give everything to him. Laughing, Hyun asked if the boy was sure he could return there, because the hero was not at all sure. Hen remembered who the Athenian Guild was. The players from it tried to conquer the entire labyrinth by force. The way Hen spoke made the leader very angry, and he asked how the hero could talk to him so arrogantly. The whole guild died when the return began. As soon as the leader wanted to hit Hung, Gim appeared and stopped him. Chan asked who the hell Gim was to give him orders. It was all just his personal business. Chan started to say that he would not obey Gaeum's orders just because he was accompanying them. Gim grabbed him by the head. The guild leader was stunned by Gim's actions because he thought the boy was just a weakling who knew nothing at all. Jim emphasized that he knew what Chan thought of him, but if the player crossed the line, he would be kicked out of the group. The players began to discuss that this was the first time they had ever seen Gaeum behave like this, but it wasn't the first time for Hyun. As night fell, Heng came to Jim and said that he was sure that the player was more tired than the others, and he was also on guard duty. Hyun added that all those people were afraid of him, and they were also afraid of the fact that they would be left behind the rest of the group. Jim emphasized that he had no choice but to force them to obey him for their lives. Jim thanked Hen for giving him this opportunity. The hero asked if Gim really had to go that far. Gim could easily reach the city walls himself, and people who are destined to die will die, and those who are not will survive. If you help those who don't have a chance, you might as well die yourself. And Hyun asked why Gim was so obsessed with those people. Looking at Hyun, he had a strange feeling, like a hero who had already seen a lot of death. This heavy look. Gim knew that the hero was not from the normal regime. Picking up the sword, the player asked who Hyun really was. The hero replied that this was the first time he had ever seen his friend like this, turned around and left, saying that he would tell everything in the place. Morning came, Jim came and woke everyone up. The player emphasized that they would be in the city in 2 hours. There was something that Jim did not take into account. First, the monsters would only attack those who tried to get to the city hall. And second, those who went to the city on their own were either already there or dead. The team was attacked by 3 creatures at once. People were scared, and Him shouted that they should all run away from here. Everyone started running away. Him was not 100% sure that he could handle 2 monsters, but there were 3 of them. However, the city hall was already in front of them, and all they had to do was stall for time until the people reached it. The player, having activated the skill of attacking with held breath, began to actively fight the monsters. Near him, he saw a powder of tranquility that exploded when it reached the enemy and created a smoke screen. Gim was happy about this. He realized that he just had to hold out a little longer. However, when he turned his head, he saw that the players hadn't gone anywhere because 2 more monsters had appeared near them. The players were surrounded near the city hall, and the monsters were slowly getting closer to them. The players were screaming, trying to find out what to do, and Jim did not understand why they wanted to kill them so badly. Gim didn't know what to do at all because he had no useful things left, and he was thinking of escaping by himself. He would be able to survive. His strength and speed were the same as a monster's, and it would not be too difficult to bow down to him. The thought of Jim wanting to abandon those people who believed him and followed him all the time made him feel sick. He had brought them here of his own free will, and if he wanted to protect them, he would have to do so to the very end. Gim stood there very confused. He had no idea what he should choose in this situation.